Dámy a pánové, Volodymyr Zelenský byl hostem u Lexe Friedmana, který mu 3 hodiny kladl otázky. O Ukrajině, válce, míru, Putinovi, Trumpovi, NATO i svobodě. Takže připravte se, že tohle bude dlouhý. Podíváme se na všechny 3 hodiny. Budu to stopovat co nejmíň, aby jsme tady nebyli prostě 5 hodin, ale asi to bude na delší čas. Takže si udělejte volný večer, pořiďte si nějaký občerstvení, vyhoďte děti z domu nebo tak něco, jo. Pošlete je do kina třeba, nebo jim dejte mobil do ruky. Začínáme. Volodymyr Zelenský, 3hodinové interview.
If we can explain why the Ukrainian language is very important, our conversation will be most effective and impactful if we speak in Russian.
To je kolega YouTuber tady.
Of course, and I understand everything you are talking about.
To je kolega.
However, I can't respond in Russian the entire interview. It's because this is how it is today. I am not making anything up. You can see it all for yourself. You can feel and hear it. Today, there were 73 missile attacks against us, and people were killed. There were over 100 drones today, and this is a daily occurrence. The people who attack us, they speak Russian. They attack people who were only recently told that this was actually in defense of Russian-speaking people. And this is why I respect neither the leader or director of today's Russia, nor the people. That's it. And I don't think that you can just pretend that nothing's happening and give Putin a pass once again for saying that we are one people, that we speak one language, etc. They speak the language of weapons. That is a fact. And we are peaceful people who want to protect themselves and defend their freedom and their human choice. You know, at the beginning of the war, I addressed Russians in Russian. Zero effect. They're mute. They do not listen. They did not listen. Some are afraid. Some have other issues. They have different reasons. It's like when a person is drowning, and people walk by because they can't hear them. And someone walks on by crying, afraid to save them. It doesn't change anything for the one drowning. They need someone to help them. This is why I honestly despise these people, as they are deaf.
Takže Zelenský pohrdá Rusy. Takže ruským lidem.
And the occupation in the supposed defense of the Russian language. And that's why, with all due respect, I would like to give an interview in Ukrainian. This is very important to me. If there are some points...
Kdo Rusy nepohrdá? No tak ono se hodně, že jo, rozlišuje mezi ruskou vládou a ruským lidem. Hodně politici se snaží mluvit o tom, že ruský národ není Putin a tak dále. Zelenský přišel a řekl, Rusové jsou banda kreténů, protože dovolují Putinovi dělat to, co dělá. Což je zajímavý a určitě svým způsobem realistický pohled na věc. Že? Nemůžu říct, že nesouhlasím úplně jako 100%. Něco na tom je.
I can certainly occasionally speak Russian, but in general, no. I'm not sure that you will understand me completely, despite your Ukrainian roots. You are a citizen of the United States, right?
Yes.
That's why I'm surprised that you don't understand. Well, it was a long time ago. I understand that it was a long time ago. Moreover...
Děkuji za 10 korun. Rozumíš? Pokračuju v dobré práci.
A lot has changed. A lot has changed.
If I may please allow me to say this in Russian. Yes, many things have changed, but I have hope. I hope that today many Russians will hear this, that Vladimir Putin will hear this, that the American president, Donald Trump, and the American people will hear this, that everyone will hear this.
Nejsem super jistý, jestli Vladimír Putin si bude pouštět 3hodinový rozhovor s Volodymyrem Zelenským teda. Typu, že spíš ne, jo? Ale tak, je to takový poselství, spíš než realistická naděje, taková jako póza.
And yes, Ukrainian language is important symbolically, but what is also important is that we understand each other well.
For Donald Trump? Is it important for Donald Trump whether I speak Russian or not?
Yes, because unfortunately, and it hurts to admit, but I cannot speak or understand Ukrainian yet. So your Your wit, dynamism, and your humanity will not come through as well and as quickly. Remember, I need to wait for 2 to 3 seconds to hear it. You have a great sense of humor, great stories. With an interpreter translating, I simply won't see this, but I understand that it's painful. Another reason is that I hoped we could show that even though it is sometimes said that Russian is banned in Ukraine.
This is not true. I'm speaking Russian now, right? We have people who speak Russian. This is not true.
Tohle je velká lež, která se šíří, že ukrajinština je povolená a že ruština je zakázaná. To je lež. Rozumíš? Přesně je to tak, že ukrajinština, děkuji za 20 korun, že ukrajinština je úřední jazyk a ruština, pokud se nepletu, byla prostě zrušena jako úřední jazyk. Jestli vůbec se to stalo, tak to bylo takhle. Což na tom není nic špatného, jako máme v České republice polštinu jako úřední jazyk, slovenštinu jako úřední jazyk, vietnamštinu, ukrajinštinu, když tady máme teďka tolik Ukrajinců, zavedeme ukrajinštinu jako úřední jazyk. To, že tady nemáme ukrajinštinu jako úřední jazyk, neznamená, že přece zakazujeme ukrajinštinu.
Really, it's not. It's really not true.
Nebo ruštinu, že?
We disrespect Russian now because of Russians. That's all. When they were saving Russian speakers, they killed Russian speakers, many people who actually, many of whom are in the East, right? In the East, they lived in the East. They destroyed their houses, destroyed their lives. It's not a rhetorical thing. It's not all talk and blah, blah, blah. I don't have time for blah, blah, blah. Yes, so it's a very, very important and sensitive moment. The message is that we are not one nation. We are not, the same country. We're different countries. Yes, different countries. And I think what is most important is what we're talking about. Not how. We're speaking about it. This is what I think. You're a smart guy. So you have a lot of experience in dialogue of this kind. That's why I think you will understand me. Yeah. Anyway, I think it is far better for Donald Trump to hear my English, not my Russian.
Your English is much better than my Ukrainian. You're getting better and better
That's
every
true. I'm a very
Připravte
honest
se na to, že Volodymyr
guy.
Zelenský bude
That's
Trumpům v
why
tomhle
I will be
rozhovoru
very honest
strašně
with
líst do
you.
prdele.
Your Ukrainian
se jako
is not
připravte.
very good, but we will work on it.
Yes. I have many
Pokud nemáte
flaws,
rádi
that's one of
Trumpa,
them.
tak tohle není pro
Sometimes
vás
I can
rozhovor.
speak English. Sometimes, as I understand, we can be very flexible, right?
Very flexible. Spanish, Swahili.
Yeah, you see?
Yeah.
We are
Javier
very
Malay needs
flexible.
to understand this. So
By the way, Javier understood me without any words
the language of love,
Yeah.
maybe.
of respect. I
Respect.
respect him. I
Yeah.
had a very good conversation with him. Really brilliant.
May I sometimes speak Russian and sometimes English?
Yes. You can use any language you like. And I think that's a very good rule for this first meeting between us. As you said, maybe we
Za
will
4
meet in
roky
the
Trump
future
prezident
for
už
the
nebude.
second
To
time.
ne, ale
Second and third and fourth.
za ty
Yeah,
4 roky,
This is good. You can
pokud
ask
to Trump
questions in the language
neskoní,
you'd like, and I will
tak
answer
může
in the
začít
language I
éru,
can.
řekněme,
Well, you said you
republikánských
wanted to meet by the
konzervativců.
sea.
Takže to, že tam nebude Trump, neznamená, že
For our next meeting,
tam bude
let's meet by the
liberální
sea.
demokrat.
With
Rozumíš?
pleasure. Next time, it would be much better to meet by our Ukrainian black or our Azov Sea.
You know, I've been to a lot of. I have traveled to many cities in Ukraine, but I have never been to Odessa. And everyone tells me that, and I don't know why.
You have to.
Can you explain to me why everyone loves Odessa so much? What's there?
You know, what's in Odessa? That's how they say it. What's there? In Odessa, we've got it all.
Okay.
Odessa je všechno.
I love
dobře.
Odessa because of its particular temperament. People have their own accent, and it's so. There are many nationalities. There are a lot of stories. Authentic Odessa cuisine. By the way, the cuisine is very different from others. The dishes are not like any other dishes, and everything is very tasty. Also, there are beautiful people, and today, you understand people very well, especially after the attacks on Odessa. You understand what the people are like, just how Odessites are, very Ukrainian. And that's very cool. I love Odessa. I go there several times a year. I go there several times a year now because, now because of strengthening of air defense systems, because of this grain corridor, etc. I go there more often. They have the sun there. They have the sea. It's Ukraine and it's very cool there.
Well, when you come
Jo,
and visit me in Texas as a guest for the third time,
With pleasure.
let's do this. How about you, my friend Joe Rogan, and I will go get some Texas barbecue together?
Who will pay?
That's a good question.
Putin. For everything. He has
Well-
to pay.
Well, yes, we'll invite
Ah,
you.
okay.
No.
dobře, chápu.
Okay.
Without him.
Okay, I get it. Understood.
But if the Rome statue...
Žid prostě, jo. Půjdeme na grilování. A kdo to zaplatí? Putin. Dobrý. Jo. Ukrajinský žid. Kdo zaplatí grilování? Putin.
will be accepted by your government before this moment.
By the way, I don't know if you know this, but Joe has a great comedy club in Austin.
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan, yes. And I think that as a person who respects comedy and stand-up comedy, it would be interesting for you to have a look at it.
No. He is. I know him, and I saw a lot of different videos. He's a very talented person. So it would be a pleasure if you invite me, and I'm able to do it. I am a little bit busy,
Yeah.
but if I'll be in the United States, I hope that I will have a conversation and a meeting with President Trump. And of course, during my visit, if I'll have the time, it would be a pleasure.
Židovství do
if
toho
you'll invite me.
nepleť.
With pleasure.
Já musím, protože Zelenský je označovaný za nacistu a fašistu, přitom je to ukrajinský žid. A jestli pak víte, proč je v Izraeli tolik lidí, co umí rusky. Nebo lidi s ruskými kořeny. No, to nás možná dostane i k odpovědi na otázku, jak je to s tím nacismem například v Rusku a jak to bylo s nacismem v Sovětském svazu.
You know what? I will pay.
Good.
Yeah. I had to think about it, but you are the president.
Yes, with you, with pleasure.
When the war is over, please come.
Thanks
and
so
when
much.
you're less busy.
Thanks so much.
If we can go back many years, World War II. Tell me the story of your grandfather who fought in World War II.
My grandfather, he graduated from the military academy, and from the very beginning of the war, he went to fight. He was in the infantry, and he fought through the entire war. He had many wounds. As they used to say back then, his chest is covered in medals, and it's true. He had more than 30. Yes, more than 30. He was the kind of man. He was such a serious man. I loved him very much. And we had a very close relationship. He didn't like to tell details about the war. He never boasted. Although I asked him, as a boy would, how many fascists did you kill? He never talked about it. He believed that the war was a great tragedy, a tragedy for everyone. And Ukraine was occupied, and it was a tragedy for Ukraine, a tragedy for Europe.
Takže potomek sovětského vojáka s více jak 30 vyznamenáními z židovské rodiny vede fašistickou Ukrajinu. Skoro jako by to nebyla úplně pravda to s tou fašistickou Ukrajinou, co? Skoro jako by to byly keci Magora z Kremlu. No nic, no. Každopádně největší neonacistickou strukturu mají Rusové a Slováci.
Europe and a tragedy for the Jewish people. His own brothers, his entire family were executed. They were tortured by fascists who had occupied Ukraine and their village. His father was the head of the village, and he was killed. They were shot. It was a mass grave, right? Yes, it was a communal burial. Some of them were killed outright, and others were buried alive. His 4 brothers, they all went to war. As soon as the war began, they were all there. He was the only one who had a military education, and they all died in the war. He was the only one who came back. He had nobody. He came back and he found my grandmother, his future wife, and she managed, what was it called then? I don't know. They don't have them anymore. It was a childcare facility, an orphanage, so to speak. a place where orphans lived, children who don't have parents, children of war. And she managed this child care facility with difficult children, as they used to call them, difficult children who went through the war, who saw their parents killed, and this is how they met. Because these difficult children, they, well, sometimes behave differently. They could steal something, do something bad. There were many children in the orphanage. Yes, that's how she met my grandfather. And I loved him very much.
A podobných sirotků
I
bude
think that my grandfather,
hromada i teď. No.
frankly, would never
Což
have
té zemi
believed
taky
that
nepomůže.
this war is possible. He would never have believed it. Because he worked in the police after the war. He was a colonel. He worked in criminal investigation all his life. So he fought with bandits all his life.
Bandits. Okay.
After the Second World War.
Taky občas zapomenu
But
nějaký
also,
slovíčko, tak použiju divný
I
slovíčko.
believe he fought for justice all his life. And we all lived in one apartment. And even after his death, I lived with both of my grandmothers and my parents. 2 grandmothers who both lost their husbands. Both of them died. Well, it was an ordinary family. An ordinary family that lived like everyone lived back then in the Soviet Union. And even after the Soviets, in the 90s. We lived in one apartment, all together. What else is there to say? But I think the most important thing was values, respect. They gave me an education. My parents gave me an education. No one left me money or apartments, so I didn't inherit anything material. But I believe that our real inheritance is here, in our minds and in our hearts. I believe that.
There's 1 second delay.
Yeah.
So if I'm sorry, if you
It's fine.
tell a joke, I will laugh about 1, 2, or 3 seconds later. There's a delay. So ordinary
Trafně
family,
ticho a
but
pak smích.
not an
Ok,
ordinary
tohle bude
time.
zajímavý.
World War II. World War II. Speaking of mass graves, I was at Babin Yar yesterday. A large part of my family died there. In moments like this, such a place serves as a stark reminder of the profound historical gravity of the Second World War. I remember this song from my youth. On June 22nd at 4 o'clock, Kyiv was bombed and the war began. I always wondered how it would feel to live in a moment when everything changed. The path of humanity completely shifts in a single moment, just like that. What do you think about that moment in 1941? Now, after the 2022 invasion, how do you perceive the Second World War after you have witnessed all of it?
Well, firstly, the war actually started earlier. It started here in Ukraine. Kyiv was bombed, as you quoted. But the war had already begun before that. And I think I perceived it as a start of the full-scale invasion. Well, I think it's hard. It's hard to understand why nobody wants to listen, look at, and analyze history. War, the rise of fascism and Nazism, the emergence of Hitler, Goebbels, and their entire team. At the time, this wasn't just about one party or even one country. It was essentially a wave of hatred, a wave of one race above the rest. They were, in fact, constructing and ultimately implemented a theory around this idea.
Tady vždycky strašně rád s trochou husí kůže na zádech poukazují na to, že Hitlerovy projevy byly plné míru, plné tolerance a plné vlastenectví, ale hlavně míru. Hitlerovy projevy byly plné svobody a demokracie. V roce 1936 se pořádaly olympijské hry v Berlíně a všechno bylo v pořádku. Jenom ta hloupá občanská válka ve Španělsku. No. Většinou to začíná rychle a nečekaně. A pak bývá málo času na to s tím něco udělat, když předtím dlouho zavíráš oči a strkáš hlavu do písku.
Later seizing Europe. They created a theory of one nation, one race, one world.
A důležitý je taky říct to, že s Hitlerovým jménem se po válce špatně zacházelo. Oni udělali z Hitlera démona, monstrum, strašidlo, bubáka, skoro až nadpřirozenou bytost. A to je chyba. Hitler jako stělesnění zla, tahle prezentace je chybná prezentace. Protože to u lidí vytváří dojem, že ve chvíli, kdy se na někoho podíváte a on nemá rohy, tak to přece není špatný člověk, nemůže to být přece Hitler. Přece nemůže být jako Hitler. Hitler je to nejhorší, ta největší svině, to největší zlo, co v dějinách existovalo. Vlastně to ani není člověk. A pak se nám strašně těžko uznává, že někdo další může být jako Hitler. Protože jsme se naučili, že Hitler je spíše symbolem zla a špatnosti, než reálným člověkem. Jo. Kdykoliv někoho označíte za Hitlera, tak bez ohledu na to, jak moc špatný ten člověk je, vždycky máme pocit, že to přehání. Tenhle ten člověk se chová jako Hitler. Jako vyvražďuje lidi, vede válku, ale jako Hitler, to možná trochu přeháníte, ne? Takhle se to často říká, protože Hitler pro lidi není člověk. Pro lidi je Hitler prostě bubák.
Their world. Of course, this idea is absolutely senseless, but it has become radicalized over the years and even gained support. A vision of one world. And in principle, the so-called Russian world, the ideology Putin promotes and imposes, it wasn't originally like that. He was a different person back then, or maybe he was always like this, but his rhetoric was different. At the beginning, remember, he talked about the EU and even about Russia's future being tied to NATO. There were even talks of joining the European Union, NATO. He spoke about shared values with the West. That's how it all sounded back then. And we must also look at Hitler, who was seriously, before the radical idea of taking over the whole world, he actually made certain steps, and everyone believed he was helping the economy. And to be fair, he did take some steps in that direction, but he was a terrifying person. None of those actions justify him, nor do they excuse his actions. And that's why we cannot look at the Second World War as if it started in 1939.
Protože začala v roce 38! Pardon. Nechal jsem se trochu unést. Já vím, začala 39. 38 se nepočítá, Sudety nejsou druhá světová válka, ale měly by být, jo? Měly by být.
1941 either. We need to draw conclusions. When did it start? With the weaknesses of the world. The division of European states, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. All of this happened before 1941. People who were more informed, those who dug deeper, whether they were politicians or not, whether they were from different walks of life, including business, which was different back then, were speaking about all of this. Hitler won't stop. There'll be a world war. Hitler will destroy nations. Nations. And that's what happened. Someone looked the other way. What I told you about. Europe was sinking then. I gave you an example of it. But the whole world looked the other way and didn't pay attention and said, no, we can negotiate with him. I'm telling you, he is okay. We can negotiate with him. He's just more right-leaning. Or it does not matter what they said. He's just very pro-nationalist. This is all nonsense. And this is not the first time. And Hitler isn't the first such case in history. We're dealing with a person who is allowed to stick to this desire to destroy. He was consumed by it and enjoying it. And what happened to Hitler? Now, what about Putin? This invasion was also at 4 in the morning. Around 4 in the morning, there were missile strikes on Ukraine. This is the same. I believe that intentions are also the same, but more on that later. By the way, you tell me if this is too long, you can stop me.
Never long enough. It's beautiful.
Okay,
It's
so it happened here
Proud
around
myšlenek
4
je
in the
vždycky
morning.
zajímavý sledovat.
Before this, I must honestly say, everyone said something, predicted something, etc., but I asked only for one thing, primarily from the United States. If you are sure, if you have the evidence, if you talk to him and he tells you that there'll be an invasion, if all this scares you, I only asked for two things. Send us weapons, or better yet, strengthen us with preventive measures so there would be no war. It wasn't the weapons that I was asking for. I asked for sanctions. Intimidate him. Please don't say that. If he comes, if he crosses borders, if he kills, we're imposing sanctions. Well, this is complete bullshit. Sorry, but really?
Oh, I understand this.
Oh, wonderful. Yes.
I understood one word.
Yeah.
So they did not help.
I believe that no, and this is a fact. We didn't receive help. If we assume that words are help, well, then yes, we received a lot of it because there were plenty of words. Even more than plenty, yes? At 4 in the morning, there were strikes. Morally, is it possible to prepare for war? No. It doesn't happen like you read in books, see in movies, and so on. What happens to you? I was just looking at my wife and children. My children were asleep, but my wife was awake. There were strikes. Missile strikes, we heard them. To you, as a living person, how can this be? You just can't fully believe this. You just don't understand. Why now? Given everything that happened in World War II when millions of people died. None of it mattered. Still at 4 in the morning, around 4, 3:40, 3:45, remember? Around this time, yes, there were missile strikes. And later, by the way, a few days after the first days of the war, I spoke with Lukashenko on the phone. And he apologized. And he said that it was not me. Missiles were launched from my territory, and Putin was the one launching them. These are his words. I have witnesses.
Okay, zajímavý.
And I apologize, he said. But believe me, that's what he told me. Volodya, this is not me. I'm not in charge, he told me. I'm not in charge. These are just missiles. This is Putin. I told him, don't do.
Tenhle rozhovor by možná měl být nahrán někde, že jo, pokud se stal. Neříkejte mi, že se rozhovory po telefonu mezi státníky nenahrávají. To by mělo. Už kvůli historii, ty vole. Nebo už kvůli důkazů například. Každopádně, abych něco k tomu řekl, co zaznělo. No k tomu se těžko něco dodává, že jo. Za mě je extrémně zajímavý právě, že vnímat pohled člověka, který to fakt jako žije, že jo. A ty emoce jsem měl podobný, jo, že to, že je nějaká válka na Ukrajině, mi došlo až po pár dních. Ze začátku to bylo takový, že jsem si furt říkal, že to je nějaká blbost, že jo. A je pravda, že pořád mi asi úplně, ani za ty 3 roky mi plně nedošlo, co se vlastně děje. Vím všechno, co se děje, ale plně mi to nedošlo, takže je zajímavý takhle sdílet nějaký ty emoce od tady Zelenskýho. No ale zatím se k tomu nedá nic moc co dodat, je to prostě jenom velmi, velmi zajímavý proud myšlenek, který vám pomůže nahlídnout do duše Volodymyra Zelenského. A bez ohledu na to, jestli říká pravdu, lež a tak dále, tak člověk, který umí číst mezi řádky a umí číst v očích a rétorice, tak z toho pochopí věci.
Do that. This was done without me. That's it. He just, on the phone, I remember this conversation. I told him that I believed. I told him, you are a murderer too, I'm just saying. And he told me, you must understand, you can't fight the Russians. I told him that we never fought them. I said, it's war. The missiles came from your land, from Belarus. How did you allow this? Then he replied, all right, retaliate then. I still remember him telling me, hit the refinery. You know how much I care about it. Moser Oil Refinery, is that it? Can't recall. Moser Oil Refinery. I told him, what are you on about? What retaliation?
Forgive me, Volodya.
Yes.
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 This was at 5 in the morning?
No. This was during the first or maybe the second or third day of the war.
Ah,
yes.
I see.
Well, after that, I went back home. I was home with my children, with my wife. I just went to my wife very quickly that night at 4 o'clock. Yes, and just told her, get the children, get ready. You'll probably need to go to my office very soon. And I left. That's it. At this moment, you're no longer a father. What happened to me, unfortunately, because I believe that this is, and not only do I believe, I understand, especially now that all of this is the most important thing, because your country is your family. The strength is in your family. And this is the most important thing. And I'm the president, and therefore...
Dodal bych k tomu asi to, že Zelenský musí být nejvíce frustrovaný člověk na této planetě. Jo. Protože vidí, jak vlastně v důsledku to, co Rusové dělají jeho zemi, nikoho nezajímá. A mnozí to ještě omlouvají. A ti, které to zajímá, tak to zajímá spíš tak jako zajímá nás to, ale musíme vyhrát příští volby, jo? Víš co? Takže to je strašně, musí to být strašně frustrující, jak vlastně všichni, snad kromě Poláků a pobaltských zemí, jsou tak moc vyděšení tím, že by se jich to taky mohlo týkat, že radši ignorují tuhletu možnost a upli svoji titěrnou důvěru v to, že se jich to netýká. Jsou tak vystrašení od Fica k Orbánovi přes ty vole Konečnou a tak dále. Všichni jsou tak vystrašení, tak zbabělí, že prostě přesvědčili sami sebe, že Putin je vlastně v pohodě a že mu jde jenom o Ukrajinu a že Ukrajinou to končí.
Or I had to stop being a father in my own family. And my wife had to do everything. She had to do everything regarding children.
No, podle mě ta víra v Putina, ta víra v Rusko, vychází pouze ze strachu. Ze strachu, že to, co říká Zelenský, by mohla být pravda. A kdyby to, co říká Zelenský, byla pravda, tak je to fakt hodně špatný. A proto radši budu věřit Putinovi, než Zelenskýmu, protože to, co říká Putin, mi zní krásněji. Putin říká, dejte mi Ukrajinu a všechno bude v pořádku. Zelenský říká, Ukrajinou to nekončí, ty budeš další. A ty jakožto zbabělec, vyděšený zbabělec, radši věříš tomu, co ti říká, nech mě zabít támhle toho a tebe nezabiju. Prostě vykašli se na něj. Zavři oči, vykašli se na něj, nech mě ho rozmrdat na hovna, znásilnit, anektovat a rozdrtit, nech mě ho zničit a nic ti neudělám. Bude to krásný, tady máš levný plyn. Vychází to ze strachu. Ze strachu, že Zelenský má pravdu.
Safety. And I had to deal with the state because I'm the president and this is my duty. And I, by the way, am taking this very seriously. I went to the office and here we are now. You're very welcome.
Well, at that moment, on February 24th, 2022, everything changed again, just like in June 1941. Everything changed. And history took a turn. The history of humanity took a turn. And for you too. Well, you were the president. You were talking about fighting corruption, about the country's freedom, about interesting and innovative reforms. But that morning of February 22nd, everything changed. Could you tell me about that morning, the details of your actions? When you had to quickly make difficult decisions. What was the process for you? How did you make these decisions? Did you discuss them with people you trust to understand how to respond to this invasion in every technical, political, and military aspect? What was the process for you? How did you make the decision?
According to our legislation, in principle, I'm the supreme commander of the armed forces of Ukraine, so I had to give corresponding orders. Yes, I have a military office, and then later there was a military headquarters where all key people gathered. This is not only about the military, it's about energy, etc., all key things. But at that moment, I made the decisions quickly and without a doubt. And I cannot say that I am just that kind of person. I'm just a living person who believed that if help is needed right now, to help evacuate people, help with children. Several cities were blocked. I was only thinking about how to deliver food there within a day. We did a lot of things, although we understood that they, in fact, occupied part of our state. And we distributed weapons to people. That's how it was. Trucks came and simply distributed weapons to people so that they could defend the capital, to ordinary people, just on the street, to ordinary people who understood that if the Russians enter the city, then we would have the same thing that's happening in other cities per the information we received. Thanks to digitalization, by the way, we had very good digitalization before this. And we preserved a lot. And even when they were surrounding certain cities, a lot of things still worked. The banking system, the internet, we had television. And thanks to this, I made several decisions to ensure that people are united and have all the information. Russia is very good at spreading large-scale disinformation. Fortunately, I have 2 decades of experience, managing a production studio, TV channels, and large media resources. I understood that we needed to build an information network very quickly. Thanks to this, I began to address the people constantly. This happened several times, 3 to 5 times a day. In fact, I became that an information source for people.
Tady je vlastně vidět, jak a slyšet, jak informace a zpravodajství a komunikace s lidmi je strašně důležitá pro zachování nějaké vnitřní integrity. Jo. I proto například Poláci označili svoji nejsledovanější televizi za strategický zdroj. Co samozřejmě má v Polsku nějaký negativní konotace, jakože co to děláte, to nemůžete a tak dále, ale prostě televize, informační prostor, to je strašně důležitý. A zvlášť, když stojíte proti Ruské federaci, která je mistrem v informační válce. Takže myslím, že to, že měli Ukrajinci v čele Zelenskýho, který se vyzná právě v tom informačním prostoru a chápe sílu médií, tak to, že měli zrovna tohohle lídra, tak byla minimálně částečná výhoda.
Who were in cities that were cut off from other information. And it was very important for me to keep all things digital, to keep the internet, to stay in touch with everyone, with all
ano, Ondřej
people.
Bočku, Putin bude válčit na to. A pokud nechápeš, jak by to mohl udělat,
a media platform, so,
nemáš dostatečně vysoké IQ, abys to mohl pochopit. A tudíž nemá smysl ti to vysvětlovat.
And this network was called Marathon.
Zamysli se nad tím, a pokud na to nepřijdeš, je mi líto, ale jsi hloupej. Jsi hloupej a nemáš kapacitu na to pochopit.
Why? There were waves. There were waves of Russian on the first day who said he ran away. I had to go out into the street. I left the office and went outside. I had to do this because I was showing that this was no green screen, to show that it was the street, not some digital manipulation. I mean, I did these things. Then I touched various objects. Now, people might think that these are small things, but I was actually showing that I was in a real place. All of this had an impact. I was absolutely sure of my actions. And these contacts, several contacts. And then I spoke to the Russians. I addressed Russians. I really did. And then only after that, I gathered. It was the first day when I invited all of the journalists here, wasn't it? That was on the first day, I think. Well, not here, to the press center in this building. I talked to journalists. I asked them not to leave because we needed weapons. At that moment, they were handing out rifles to people. And for me, journalists and media platforms were essential voices. There were various journalists from different countries here, and they were essentially stuck. And I asked them for contacts, those who had access to Russians, Belarusians, Kazakhs who understood everything, the same information. And I spoke to them. And I spoke to them and spoke in Russian. I told them, you must stop Putin. This is terrible. This is horror. This is war. You must stop him. And if you stand up now, if you speak out, and if you go out into the streets, this was very important. I spoke to them in Russian to show them that there was no problem and that all of these pretexts were made up. This is why it's so painful to talk about the Russian language too, because look, if a person does not want to listen, they will not listen, no matter what language we speak.
I disagree with you here. I think and hope that many people in Russia will hear us today.
They blocked YouTube recently. Are you aware of this? In their country.
I know. And I simply guarantee that this conversation will travel fast on the internet. Everyone will hear you. They will hear you. Including the president of Russia will hear you. This is why I have hope.
He is actually deaf, even if he speaks to you. He is deaf by his very nature. Do you understand the difference? For instance, when you talk to Musk, you're talking to an innovator, a scientist about rockets. You talk about how to save on costs and how they land. And on the other hand, Putin doesn't launch rockets to save money, but to kill people. Do you think you can talk to Putin about technology? Your guys were interviewing him, and he told them about tribal history. Do you understand? Imagine a Russian man in his country listening to him. You know what Musk is about? Technology, Mars, artificial intelligence. And this guy, Putin, is standing there bare-assed, pontificating about tribes. You've got to understand. You think that when you do interviews, like Mr. Tucker, who did an interview there, that you're about to make them friends. How could you? What does this have to do with friends? He's different. He is simply different.
But it's still necessary.
A mammoth stands before you.
Nevím teda, jestli Zelenský prostě jenom není zaslepený, řekněme, nenávistí k Putinovi, což je naprosto pochopitelný. Jestli jako Putin neposlouchá nic, hlasy rozumu nikoho, jestli není nikdo, koho by poslouchal, těžko říct. Podle mě poslouchá jenom lidi, kterých se bojí, takže čínského prezidenta a možná Trumpa bude poslouchat, kdo ví. Takže rozumí síle. Ale je samozřejmě tady dobrý říct to, že když s ním chtěl Zelenský jednat o Donbase a Luhansku, tak Putin ho poslal jednat se Strelkovem, a.k.a. Girkinem, což je naprosto směšný a krásně to ilustruje to, jak vlastně na začátku války nikdy neměl za cíl se domluvit.
By the way, I must say that when you said bare-assed, it was not translated. Could the interpreter please translate?
This is so that you can understand.
Now he explained everything to me. I understand.
Yeah? That's
now
great.
I fully understand.
That's
anyway,
great.
But we still need to talk.
One should always speak with someone who listens. And you must speak when you know that this will benefit you, bring peace and calm to the world, not the other way around.
Ondřej Bočku znovu. pokud nedokážeš přijít na to, jak vítězství Ruska na Ukrajině odemkne Rusku cestu k podmanění evropských států, pokud na to nedokážeš přijít sám, pak nemáš dostatečně vysoké IQ a dostatečné znalosti na to, aby ti mělo smysl něco vysvětlovat. Zamysli se a zkus na to přijít sám. Zkus to vymyslet. Zkus to. A pokud to nezvládneš, tak fakt to nemá cenu. Fakt to nemá cenu.
I love
A nebudu s tebou ztrácet
President
čas v tu
Trump's
chvíli.
message when he speaks. I think that we share a position on peace through strength. That is very important. It means that if you are strong, you can speak. And we need to be strong. And Ukraine has to be strong. Strong enough. Otherwise, what for? So you know who, like Voldemort, who must
Nemusel,
must
Ondřej, nemusel.
not be named.
Znovu,
Yes,
přemýšlej dál.
he's like Voldemort. He
Voldemort? Počkej, cože?
thrusts, he must you for. So you know who, like Voldemort, who must not be named. Yes, he's like Voldemort. He thrives, subsists, and lives on being subjectivized. Instead of isolation, he is offered to step out into the light. He's darkness personified, and you offer him, as it were, to be subjectivized. Why? There's only one reason. Fear.
Já
And
jsem
you
genius!
say-
Pardon. Samozřejmě, že je to strach. Jo? Všichni, kdo mají mozek, to chápou.
We need to talk.
Všichni, kdo mají mozek,
We need to be
samozřejmě nenaplněný strachem.
in a strong position and not talk, but end the war.
Pardon.
Yes, it is possible through dialogue. We're not opposed to it. You just need to be in a strong position to make the other person want it. Do you think he wants to end the war? That's what you suggested? I think this is naive. I'm sorry. With all due respect, it's naive to think he wants to finish the war. It's
Tell you what.
the
Já
circumstances.
jsem měl
Sorry for
štěstí v
interrupting.
typu.
The-
A, to je pravda.
There's
Jsem
something
hloupej,
in
jenom jsem
me.
typoval.
I think that President Trump not only has will, he has all these possibilities, and it's not just talk. I really count on him, and I think that our people really count on him. So he has enough power to pressure him, to pressure Putin not into wanting to stop it. No, he will not want to pressure him to actually stop it. That is the difference. Don't rely on his will, Putin's will to stop. You won't see it. That's what I think. Sorry.
No, sorry, I interrupted you first. But what I would want, I do have what some might call a naive dream of you sitting down with Putin and Trump and negotiating a deal about a ceasefire and together finding a path to long-term peace. And I think this requires strength, requires negotiations. There are a lot of carrots and sticks here that can be used to make a real deal. And Trump is very keen on making a deal
Spousta
and ready
metodů,
to
dobře.
negotiate.
Can I ask you a question? Yep. I just really want you and I to be on the same page. It's very important to be in the same information space. Extremely important.
Ondřej Bočku, kolik je ti let?
Let's talk a bit about the ceasefire. Let me describe the situation to you. In December 2019, in Normandy, in Paris, at the Élysée Palace, Macron, Merkel, Putin, and I agreed on the ceasefire. The US wasn't there. And this, by the way, was a weak point of the meeting. If you'd like, we can later discuss why they weren't there. It's a security guarantee thing in general. It's Germany's position, etc. We agreed on an exchange of hostages and all-for-all exchange. We made a deal to exchange everyone for everyone. I think you know that. And there was also a meeting that lasted many hours, a meeting where we made a deal with him. Everyone was tired. It was just the two of us in the end. And I proposed a ceasefire. By the way, no one in Ukraine believed. Few believed in the ceasefire, and he wanted troop withdrawal. I calculated that if there were a withdrawal of troops from the line of contact the way Russians proposed, it would take 20 years. I proved it to him just in terms of time. Square kilometers, namely the length of the line of contact or delimitation line. And we agreed on what I told him, that it will not work out. But I had many points because I was deeply involved in the issue. I was involved very deeply. It's my thing in general. If I start doing something, I can't stand there like that guy I spoke about with my ass out, you know? I must be dressed. I must be prepared. I must be prepared better than anyone in front of me. You do sports, right?
Mm-hmm.
I practiced for many years, and we know what fights are like, what boxing is, what Thai boxing is. This is what I did, and I loved it very much. When you step into the ring, you understand everything pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And so I stepped into it, and I was definitely well prepared. But he wasn't. No. He was not deeply involved in the process. What border? Where is it? How long will it take to disengage troops? And why wasn't he involved? You want to know? Because he wasn't going to do any of this. This is what confused me. If you are not deeply involved in the issue, well then it's as if you don't really need the result. That's what I think. So what happened? We agreed that there will be gas continuation, gas transit. In 2019, we agreed with him. This was the security for Europe. Merkel asked me for it. And this was extremely important for Germany. We agreed with him. Secondly, we agreed that for him, it was just money. So secondly, we agreed on an exchange. For me, this was the most important thing. For them, gas was. For me, was the people. And this is a fact, because I wanted to have a humanitarian advantage so that there would be further meetings that would lead to sustained peace. And third, ceasefire. Ceasefire you spoke about. What happened? The gas contract was signed because he needed it. And by the way, he knew everything about it. As for exchange, we took the first step and exchanged the people. Regarding the ceasefire, well, they started killing us in about a month. So I called him and I told him, we agreed on a ceasefire, didn't we? Well, it wasn't a piece of toilet paper, was it? This is serious business. Or so it seemed. It really was serious. Merkel, Macron, you and I, we all agreed on this together. A ceasefire is important, isn't it? Not for New Year's, because everyone was celebrating New Year's. And now they're offering us a Christmas ceasefire. It's all the same. A ceasefire for 2-3 days just to get some praise. But this isn't a performance. This isn't some kind of theater. No, this is about people's lives. And that's what happened. After that, I called him a few more times. I think I only had 2-3 calls with him in total. I asked him for a ceasefire. He told me.
To pořád mluví o roce 2019, o tom, že vlastně podepsali dohodu o plynu, podepsali dohodu o vyměnění vězňů, že jo, mezi Luhanskem a Ukrajinou, a pak o příměří, pokud to chápu správně.
We will figure it out now. People from the occupied territory, Russians and separatists, they were all there together. They continued to shoot and kill our people. Yes, the front lines were quiet, but they killed people. They were killing people, and I kept calling him. I called again and again, but there was nothing. Until, after a few months, the Russians stopped answering the phone. We did not have any contact since. I wanted another meeting, like we had in Normandy. I wanted the next meeting. I wanted to find a solution, but the Russians refused. We tried to make it happen through various European countries, and not only European, But the Russians refused. They passed along some kind of bullshit, made excuses. They didn't want it. Meanwhile, they were sending their snipers. We had evidence, living proof, even video evidence, because some of them were captured back then. Those were the snipers in training. They were training them. They were training them. And later those snipers operated in Syria and Africa. These snipers were training in our country, in the East. Ukrainians were living targets. They were shooting from the other side, killing people, women, people, children. They were shooting. It was a hunt. By the way, it was in the Russian-speaking region in the East, where, according to him, everyone is speaking Russian. That's where they were shooting, where the situation currently is the most tense. They killed people. We sent this information, sent pictures. We sent them to the UN, sent them everywhere. We worked very hard, very persistently. I met with everyone. But who thought of Ukraine back then? They didn't notice it much. They didn't pay much attention to Crimea being illegally occupied either. And to be honest, the United States of America too. Everyone was somewhat silent about this issue. That's how it was. It was like that before a full-scale war. I want to ask you a question about the ceasefire.
Tohleto je Zelenského strana mince. Já jsem teda viděl rozhovor s Čechem, který byl součástí pozorovací mise OBSE a ten v podstatě řekl, že během jeho mise, která probíhala před válkou, v podstatě skončila začátkem války, letěl letadlem ze Soči do Turecka, že jo. Takže byl jeden z těch, co se museli evakuovat, protože začala válka, takže tam byl prostě před válkou. A v podstatě on říkal, že ty porušení toho příměří byly z obou stran, že vlastně většinou se nedalo ani určit, kdo to příměří porušil, protože prostě jenom slyšeli výstřel nebo viděli výbuch a jenom těžko se dalo říct, kdo to vypálil. Nicméně bylo to podle jeho tvrzení z obou stran a došlo třeba k 5 000 výstřelů a výbuchů jako za týden, že jo. Takže 5 000 porušení příměří za týden. Ta válka tam nikdy nepřestala. Jenom měla nízkou intenzitu.
For example, in Mariupol today, there are American and Ukrainian journalists, and everyone will tell you who has contact now with Mariupol, who fled from there in the last minutes just before the occupation, or who was able to leave, to escape after the occupation. Chernov, who won an Oscar, was among them. And the journalists that left Mariupol, they are here. By the way, we had a conversation. They will tell you that 20,000, 30,000 civilians were tortured and buried there. We do not know the number of victims. People who didn't want to work with them, who refused to cooperate with them, people who went on strikes to protest, people who did not want to work with the Russians who occupied Mariupol. And this is one
čekají, co Trump. To upřímně moc nechápu. Co Trump? Trump přijede za Putinem. Řekne mu svoje sny, které jsou postavený na tom, že nechápe situaci. Pak mu dojde, jak je to komplikovaný. A válka bude pokračovat. Co jako čekáte od Trumpa, pro boha?
This city. And I have a question for you. What about the millions of children? And I will ask you in Russian so that you hear this without delay. What about the millions of children over there? What if we just arranged a ceasefire without understanding what would happen next? Without understanding what will happen to Ukraine's security guarantees? What about the millions of children in the occupied territories? What should I tell them? What am I to tell them? What is it I should tell them? What? Whatever? Hey, all of you over there, see ya. And those tens of thousands of people buried there, is that what we want? Are we ready to forgive them for this? We must at least take the first step. If this is a ceasefire, we must know that there is a security guarantee for the part of Ukraine under our control. We need it so that he will not come back. This is very important. And what do we say to the people who live in those territories? These are millions of people. Did you know that since 2014, in Donetsk, in the Crimea This is happening in Melitopol as well, as in Berdyansk now. They are making all these kids of drafting age go and fight. And if they don't go, they will be killed. Do you understand what's happening? That is why a ceasefire, everything I said, what I wish for, and I believe in President Trump's power to use all of this information to come up with a way to make Ukraine strong. And be strong. Why am I saying that? I will give you an example. President Trump will be in the same situation as I was in 2019. Precisely the same situation. I want to end the war. We want a lasting peace for Ukraine. We must do this. The ceasefire, exchange people, and then diplomatically return all territories. And we will do this through diplomacy. What will happen next with President Trump? If the ceasefire happens without security guarantees, at least for the territory we control, what does he get? If he manages to make a ceasefire deal, and 3 months later, Putin launches a new wave of attacks, what will Trump look like? What will Ukraine look like? What will everyone look like? Putin will just do it. And why would Putin do it? Because today, he's afraid of Trump. But once Trump manages, for example, to do a ceasefire deal without serious security guarantees for Ukraine, he will give a pass to Putin. Not that he wants to. No, he does not want that. I believe.
Je prostě strašně důležitý, aby pokud Trump dokáže Putina dotlačit do nějakého vyjednávání a udržení příměří, což upřímně nejsem si jistý, jestli zvládne, podle mě ne, tak aby tam byly nějaký bezpečnostní záruky. Jakože fakt skutečný bezpečnostní záruky. A pokud si Trump nedokáže prosadit bezpečnostní záruky a kývne Putinovi na příměří bez bezpečnostních záruk pro Ukrajinu, tak to bude projev slabosti. A já to řeknu asi takhle. Mír na Ukrajině může být jenom, když bude Putin dostatečně vyděšený. A pokud Trump přijme jeho podmínky, tak se ho přestane bát. A otázka zní, jestli si Trump dokáže vymoci mír s garancemi. A proto si myslím, že Trump nikdy žádný skutečný mír nevyjedná. Protože tam přijede za tím Putinem. To budeme zase slyšet, jak je Trump proruský šváb, že jede za Putinem, ale samozřejmě je něco jiného, když tam jede americký prezident versus když tam jedou kolaborovat Slováci. Jo. Nicméně, Trump přijede za Putinem s cílem dotlačit Putina k tomu, aby uzavřel mír na Ukrajině a uznal americký garance ukrajinský prostě nezávislosti, něčeho takového. Na to ale Putin nepřistoupí. A Trumpovi dojde, že je to složitější. Ale uvědomí si, že nemůže přistoupit na Putinovy požadavky, protože kdyby přistoupil na Putinovy požadavky, tak bude vypadat jako slaboch. A slabocha Putin neuznává. Takže v tu chvíli se nacházíme v nevyřešitelným paradoxu, že mír na Ukrajině může být nastolen jenom, když se Trump projeví slabě, ale když se Trump projeví slabě, tak to nepovede k míru na Ukrajině. Chápeme.
Believe in what he says. But he will give Putin an opportunity. Because in Putin's head, he wants me to fight with Trump. Putin's plan is to end the occupation of our territory. This is in his sick head. And I'm absolutely sure of this. That is why I told you, don't wait for Putin to want to stop the war. Pressure him so that he is forced to stop the war. That's important.
It's important to say that what you said about the children is a tragedy. War is hell. But let me say again, we must find a path to peace.
There is one.
What is it?
There is one. Before ceasefire, strong Ukraine. Strong Ukraine's position? Yes, we can speak about it with Trump. For me, we can speak about security guarantees, but a quick step, a quick...
Jediná garance je dostatek odešníků proti fašistům v period Russia. A tohle je přesně ruská mentalita. Proto s nimi nelze uzavřít mír, dokud nejsou vyděšení k smrti.
Step is NATO. A partial membership NATO. Yes, I understand. I understand Trump's feelings about NATO. I heard him. He's thinking through all of it, of course. But anyway, yes, NATO is a strong security guarantee for all the people, for us. Part of security guarantees. The second part is the arms aid package, which we will not use. If a ceasefire works, nobody will use the weapons. For what? But it has to stay. But with all due respect to the United States and to the administration, not like before, I don't want the same situation like we had with Biden. I ask for sanctions now, please, and weapons now. And then we will see. If they start it again, of course, we'll be happy if you'll give us more and you will stand with us shoulder to shoulder. Of course, that is right. But it's different when you have weapons. Putin wouldn't have been able to occupy so much territory. It was very difficult for us to push him out. But we didn't have weapons before, and that is the same situation. It can be the same situation. I'm just sharing this with you. Like I said at the very beginning, I want to be very honest with you and with your audience. Yes, it's true. If we do not have security guarantees, Putin will come again.
To make it clear, let's describe the idea that you are speaking about. I would like to offer you other ideas too, but right now, your idea is that NATO accepts Ukraine minus the 5 regions of Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, Kherson, and Crimea.
Just so you understand the situation, the invitation to NATO is legislatively issued to Ukraine. So to us, all those territories are still Ukraine. But NATO so far can only act in the part that is under Ukrainian control. This can be negotiated. I am sure about that. Yes, this would not be a great success for us. But if we see a diplomatic way to end the war, this is one of the ways. So it is. That is a start.
Tady to vypadá, že Zelenský neví, jak funguje NATO, ale to by bylo špatný pochopení jeho slov. On v podstatě mluví o tom, že válka může skončit ve chvíli, kdy Ukrajina bude vojensky silná a chráněná spojenci, kdy se prostě Rusové budou bát zaútočit. A může skončit i tím, že Ukrajina odevzdá svá východní území. Cílem Ukrajiny pak bude počkat, než Rusko pod vlivem různých sankcí a vnitropolitických problémů bude dost slabý na to, aby bylo ochotný přijmout předání území zpátky. Podobně jako sjednocení východního a západního Německa. Taky to proběhlo bez války, že jo? Takže to je jakási možná idea v budoucnosti. Tedy ani ne tak Ukrajina v NATO, jako spíše Ukrajina garantována NATO a získání těch území diplomatickou cestou. No.
Secondly, weapons, arms aid package.
Nemusí vstoupit Ukrajina do NATO, stačí, když NATO vstoupí na Ukrajinu. Jednoduše řečeno, ano.
Right now, it's all written down. And President Trump might have seen it or not, but we've got no secrets from him. Yes. So, but mostly it depends on the willingness of the United States, because some of it will come from the EU, some from the United States, of course, together. So not just from the United States. No. We need unity with this package. So the package and sanctions. Yes, sanctions. But I think it's in the interest of all the smart people to not have Russian energy on the market in general. So he has to stop it. That's all. It's fine. American oil, American gas is okay. Why not? And it's cheaper. So it will be cheaper for the whole world. The money will go to the United States. And I think he will be happy. And the president and your people will be happy. But it's your decision. I'm just sharing.
No, levnější. Jak pro koho, že? Ale chápu, mluví k Američanům v tuhletu chvíli. A jako je pravda, že Donald Trump fakt hodně chce, aby Evropa brala americký plyn. A z toho důvodu mi přijde jako absolutní blbost si myslet, že Donald Trump bude nějak cílit na zrušení sankcí a tak dále. Jo? Chápeme se. Naopak. On bude velmi chtít využít Ukrajinu jako páku na Evropu. Protože pokud se Donald Trump postaví na stranu Ruska ve válce na Ukrajině, tak to znamená, že se postaví proti Spojeným státům, že jo? Proti zájmům Spojených států. Takže zájem Spojených států je, aby Evropa neobchodovala s Ruskem a aby Evropa brala plyn z Ameriky. A pokud bude mír a krásně a sluníčko a nula sankcí mezi Evropou a Ruskem, tak proč by jako kdokoliv bral plyn z Ameriky?
Yes, and cheap oil. So Putin won't have so much money for the war. And that's it.
But this is difficult because it's a lot. You're saying to continue the sanctions on Russia to accept Ukraine into NATO. I need to ask you some difficult questions about this.
Yes, go on.
I trust and respect your words today. Many people respect and love you in America.
Myslíte si, že by šlo postavit trubky přes Grónsko do Evropy? Jako byl by to projekt jako kráva. Na druhou stranu.
Trump respects you.
Hlavně otázka, jestli na takovou vzdálenost vůbec se to vyplatí, že jo? Jestli na takovou vzdálenost jsou ty trubky ještě efektivní. Chápeš? Přece jenom v té trubce musí být nějaký tlak, musíš to nějak tlačit, pohání to nějaký, prostě nějaká stanice, čerpací a tak dále. Takže jestli by ta přeprava tou trubkou nakonec nebyla dražší než přeprava loděma ve výsledku. Když do toho zakomponuješ i náklady na výstavbu a tak dále, případně pokud by přeprava trubkou z Ameriky byla levnější než přeprava loděma, tak jestli by návratnost, že jo, takového projektu třeba, nebyla v rámci 100 let, rozumíš? Nejsou tam už, no tak z Ameriky do Evropy žádný trubky nevedou.
Oh, come on now. Remember last time you corrected me? When I said that you love Javier Milei, you said, no, I respect him. So let's not talk about love today. But could we talk seriously?
Kdo bude hlídat, aby to Čína a Rusko nepoškodilo? Kdo hlídá, aby ISIS nepoškodil trubky na dně Středozemního moře, že jo?
Russia's security?
Okay, can I interview you
na
a
tuhle
little?
otázku a
Question
přijdeš
is,
na
what
odpověď
land
na
is
svoji
the war
otázku.
happening on? And where did it start? On our soil, on our territory. International law was violated. The sovereignty of our country was violated. Civilians were killed.
Led se pohybuje,
Tens
tam
of
by to
thousands
nešlo.
of our-
To je taky pravda. Nejdřív musíme rozpustit ledovce. Aha, to je ten strategický plán. Rozpustíme ledovce a pak tam povedeme potrubí s plynem. Easy. Pohoda. Nádhera.
Our people were taken hostage, and everyone
Lodě
will
budou asi
tell you
šikovnější. No.
this happened. This is what happened. When I speak with the global south, which is trying to balance the two sides because of the history, because of their roots, and because of their shared economic interests with Russia in the past, and now, of course, when you talk to them, they are speaking a little bit like you. I mean, they're balancing a little bit, you know, a little bit in between, but we will work on it.
Yeah.
It's our first meeting. During the second one, you will be more on our side.
Yeah.
But it's just
You're very convincing.
we will see.
Very charismatic.
Yeah, thank you. But when I speak with them, it's very important. Even with their balancing attitude towards the war, they all recognize that this is a war. This is not just internal conflict. This is a full-scale war that Putin began. And all of them, if you talk to them, they say, but then they all recognize that it's his own big mistake, Putin's mistake, and that he's not right. That's why I said, no, he's not right. And you have to begin from this. If you begin at the middle, Between Ukraine and Russia, of course, we can speak like this. You are in the middle and say, okay, what's going on? There is a fight. Where is the fight? It's not the fight like in Europe, when Napoleon is fighting against somebody in the middle of Europe. No, this is not in the middle of somewhere of the planet, not the planet. It's concretely on our land. So one country with one army, one person came to another. That's it. It's very clear.
Again, I would like us to find a path to peace. So let us nevertheless try to start in the middle. What other ideas do you think might? You are a very intelligent person. And
Your Russian isn't that good either.
Huh.
And I told you
yes,
that this is only our first meeting.
my English is not very good either.
Your English is very good.
Thank you. To be honest, I'm terrible at speaking in every language. Well, there are other ideas. For instance, sorry to say this, it sounds crazy,
Please.
but what if both Ukraine and Russia are accepted into NATO?
Putin himself spoke about Russia, maybe about NATO. What you just said is very correct. What are the guarantees for Russia? It's not like I'm even interested what happens to them. To be honest, I don't care what will happen to them in the future after the war ends. But these are our borders, and we must understand what is going on there. Well, the NATO guarantees for Ukraine. Actually, this is also a security guarantee for the Russians. Frankly, I talked about this many times before. Sorry, I'm speaking figuratively, but as an example, if you were a father who lost his children,
Okay.
a grown man, a man, an adult, and the war has ended, and he never got justice for real. For example, somebody decides to freeze support. We won't give you anything. You can't fight. You can't continue. So we stop when we stop, without any guarantees, without any support, without financing, okay. And nobody is held accountable, but the man lost his children. He will not get anything. None of the killers will be in prison. All the sanctions will be removed, and he lost his children. And we have thousands of such people. Why do you think they will not go to Russia? We'll find a way and will not kill the Russian soldiers there or somebody there. Why wouldn't they? It's human nature. It's not about us. It's everyone. Read American writers. Always after any war, if there is no justice for people, there must be punishment for the crime. It is only justice. How come my child was taken away? The war took him. This is very scary. And even whether it was my son who was fulfilling his constitutional duty or simply a missile that struck a civilian child. And if there is no justice and the killers are not punished, why wouldn't these people come back with hate?
Chápu.
They will definitely come back. So when
Chápu. Takže vlastně tady mluví o tom, že pokud se Ukrajina nedočká spravedlnosti, pokud vlastně Ukrajinci nebudou mít pocit, že z té války vyšli spravedlivě, tak to může vést k další vlně násilí a nenávisti právě na Rusech. Jo, že může to vést k terorismu, může to vést prostě jenom k útokům, k násilí celkově. A řekl bych, že na tom něco bude, no. Že spoustu lidí by se v takovém případě cítilo zrazeno nebo podvedeno. Cítili by se, že mají právo na pomstu, například. Takže svým způsobem tady Zelenský se snaží prodat to, že spravedlivost pro Ukrajinu svým způsobem chrání i Rusko před nastranými Ukrajinci, když to řeknu jednoduše.
When we talk about NATO is not only stopping Russia. Do not forget, NATO is stopping us too. Because there will not be justice for everyone. We know that NATO does not have the right to solve certain issues with war. NATO is a security alliance. It is protection, not brainwashing. What Putin claims that this is offensive is not true. NATO is a defensive alliance, a security alliance, and it is security for Russia.
But unfortunately, there are many options for peace that don't involve NATO inviting Ukraine as a member. Can you imagine security guarantees without NATO membership? For example, if America simply leaves NATO, I believe there is a high likelihood that Donald Trump would do such a thing.
To je blbost.
I think it's very bad.
Amerika, která opouští NATO, to jsou keci, ty vole. A připadá mi docela zvláštní, že takhle velký podcaster s takovýmhle velkým mediálním dosahem vlastně šíří, řekněme, tuhletu konspirační teorii o tom, že Amerika opustí NATO. To mi připadá jako blábol hroznej. A vypadá to ale, že mezi Američanama je to něco, co jim připadá jako možný. Když to je na téma zvláštní, velmi zvláštní.
For NATO. That's the end. That's the death of NATO. It is a pity because I think that it's a very good alliance. Maybe not everything's good there from the bureaucracy or money, etc. But totally, countries who are in NATO, they don't fight. There is no war on the land of any of these NATO countries. I think that is the answer. It works or not. It works politically or militarily. I don't know.
Takže když mi někdo tady prostě zneuctí dceru, dostane 3 roky, pro mě to bude malé zarosti učení, tak vezmu pak spravedlnost na sebe a to přeci nejde. A to se neděje. Lidé, kteří mají pocit, že spravedlnosti nebylo učiněno zadosti, nepáchají zločiny na, řekněme, zločincích. Páchají, že jo? Děje se to. A právě o tom Zelenský mluvil, že Ukrajinci na konci války, pokud budou mít pocit, že nebyla vlastně že ten mír není spravedlivý, tak to povede pravděpodobně k násilí, k touze se pomstít a tak dále. Pak seš netvor pro lidi? Ne. Absolutně ne. Zeptej se kohokoliv na ulici. Kohokoliv. Zeptej se. Kdybych ti řekl, že jsem zabil člověka, ale ten člověk předtím znásilnil moji dceru, odsoudil bys mě za to? Ten člověk tě poplácá po ramenou a řekne ti, já taky, kámo, já bych to taky udělal. Správně, udělal jsi to správně. Kamaráde, vole, lidi mají cit pro spravedlnost.
But it works. So without Trump, without the United States of America, there will not be NATO. That is the first. So, and you say, can we imagine that? That what?
That there could be security guarantee without...
No, we don't need guarantees without the United States. That's it, because the United States is a very strong, powerful country. The United States puts the point. Of course, Putin said that it's just the Soviet Union, where, by the way, Ukraine was the second strong republic militarily. Yes, by the way, but he of course, always forgets about it. But during the World War II, without help of the United States, support of your troops, support of your industry, industrially, militarily, without your money, without your people, Hitler could win. So the United States helped a lot. Of course, Europe, USSR, and of course, everybody fought. Everybody did a lot. But without the United States, it couldn't be such. I don't use the word success because I think that there is no war which ends successfully, because this is a war. 7-figure losses, heavy losses in World War II, millions of people. And that's why without the United States, security guarantees are not possible. I mean, these security guarantees which can prevent Russian aggression. Of course, we have security guarantees bilaterally with some countries, financing, support of our internal military and defending and humanitarian issues, and demining, which is very important, and helping our children in the school networks. By the way, this is a very sensitive point. How many bomb shelters? How many bomb shelters we built with the partners for the children? And it's a pity that they are underground, but can you imagine their eyes? When they came after COVID, you understand what does it mean, COVID, but they had COVID and the war, and together they didn't see each other for so many years. And when they saw each other, even underground, they were very happy and smiling. So we have such security guarantees, but it's not enough to prevent. Yes, preventive measures also work to prevent the aggression of Putin. No, to stop.
Your English is better than my Russian. This is wonderful.
I'm not sure.
I'm just giving you compliments.
Thank you.
You're
No,
supposed
thank
to do
you.
that kind of thing to a president.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Once again,
Come on.
without NATO guarantees,
To není nesmyslnost, to není spravedlnost, ale nesmyslná pomsta? To je tvůj pohled. Pohled, který většina této populace nezdílí. A jelikož ho většina této populace nezdílí, tak vlastně není skutečný.
let's say on January 25 or sometime at the end of January this year, you will sit down with Donald Trump, with Vladimir Putin, and together negotiate a ceasefire with strict security guarantees. And an agreement will be signed. What will this look like without NATO?
I will make it clear. And so, first of all, I think January 25th or some other day. Well, you just call it January 25th. And I don't mind. It's my birthday. And we sit down. First of all, with Trump. We agree with him on how we can stop the war, stop Putin. It is important for us to sit down.
Janošek je k smrti vyděšený tím, že Zelenský
Secondly,
mluví
it is
pravdu,
very important for us
a tak
that
z něho radši udělá
Europe,
neupřímného herce.
which is very important
Klasický
for us because
příklad
we are part
vyděšeného
of Europe.
člověka, který si
And
racionalizuje
not only
vlastní spravedlnost.
geographically, geopolitically, but also in the European Union where we will be. For us, it is very important that Europe also has a voice. It's the second thing. It won't be long because Europe will be looking at us and will be looking at Trump. And by the way, I now see that when I talk about something with Donald Trump, whether we meet in person or we just have a call, all the European leaders always ask, how was it? This shows the influence of Donald Trump. And this has never happened before. With an American president, I tell you from my experience, this also gives you confidence, that he can stop this war. That is why we and Trump come first, and Europe will support Ukraine's position because they understand that Ukraine has every right to have its voice heard in this because we are at war. Trump and I will come to an agreement, and then and I am sure that he can offer strong security guarantees together with Europe, and then we can talk to the Russians. That's right. Not just three of us sitting down at once. And you still talk to me like that? Do you know how? As if Putin wants to sit down and talk, but Ukraine does not. This is not true.
I think that, yes, he is in fact ready to talk.
Did you talk to him?
On the phone or what?
How do you normally talk to him?
I don't know. Normally by the sea. The same as with you. He invites you to the sea with me. Just the three of us.
No, one of us may drown.
Who? Are you good at swimming?
Yes, I'm a good swimmer.
You're a good swimmer. Well...
And I would like to add that if you have any contact with them, I just want to hear what happens then.
I have never talked to Vladimir Putin, but I have a feeling that he is ready.
Mě zajímalo, z čeho ten pocit teda vychází.
I hope you're ready. And this is not just a feeling, but a dream. I have a dream here that the three of you will get together in a room and make peace.
Kdyby naivita byla člověk, ty vole.
And I want to understand what it looks like, what security guarantees look like that would satisfy Ukraine, that would satisfy Russia.
Ukraine needs security guarantees first and foremost. We are in danger. That is why they are called so. This is no joke to me. Let's take a few steps back. Interesting. Why are security guarantees a strong position of Ukraine, strong weapons, and so on, so important, I will give you a little history lesson. Although I think you have prepared yourself and know everything perfectly, well, you can correct me on that. Yes, Ukraine had security guarantees. The Budapest Memorandum. Nuclear weapons are the security guarantees that Ukraine had. Ukraine had nuclear weapons.
Actually, ty jaderné zbraně ukrajinský, to není tak, že by je Ukrajinci byli schopni použít. Jo. Oni sice měli ty jaderné zbraně na svém území, ale neměli úplně kapacity použít jaderné zbraně. A rozhodně neměli kapacity, finanční kapacity, udržovat jaderné zbraně funkční. Takže argument jadernými zbraněmi, že kdyby nebylo Budapešský memorandum a tak dále, jakoby chápu, ale prakticky ten argument není platný. No. Je to trochu mimo argument, ale chápu, proč ho používá. Je to dobrý příklad.
I do not want to characterize it as good or bad. Today, the fact that we do not have them is bad. Why? Because this is war. Today we are at war. Because you have unleashed the hands of a nuclear power.
Dokázali by udržovat jednu, Rusové by dokázali sestřelit jednu, že jo. Když máš jaderné zbraně, tak ti nestačí jedna, musíš jich mít 50, aby byly jako efektivně hrozba aspoň nějaká, že jo.
The power is fighting against us, against Ukraine, and doing what it wants. By the way, even you are now talking about ceasefire, just a ceasefire. Maybe give flowers to Putin, maybe to say, thank you so much for these years. That was a great part of my life. No, we are not just ready for this.
To bylo hodně cynický, ty vole.
The Budapest Memorandum, nuclear weapons, this is what we had. Ukraine used them for protection. This does not mean that someone attacked us. That doesn't mean that we would have used it. We had that opportunity. These were our security guarantees. Why am I talking about this in detail? Because if you take the Budapest Memorandum, by the way, I discussed this with President Trump. We have not finished this conversation yet. We will continue it. Regarding the Budapest Memorandum, the Budapest Memorandum included security guarantees for Ukraine. At first, three. The most important security guarantors for Ukraine. 3 strategic friends and partners of Ukraine. This was in agreement. United States of America, Russia, Britain, France, and China joined. There were 5 states that these are not even security guarantees. We now understand that this is not a guarantee of security because on the one hand, these are security guarantees, but there was an English word, as far as I understand, assurance. It is translated as assurance, right? And in Russian, it will be, and what? Assurance. That is, give up nuclear weapons because you were under pressure of the US and Russia for Ukraine to give them up. These 2 powers were exerting pressure. These 2 states negotiated to ensure that Ukraine does not have nuclear weapons. Ukraine agreed. These are the largest states. This is the nuclear 5 that does not even provide security guarantees. Now we just need to find these people and we just need to put in jail all of those who, frankly, invented all this. So, confidence.
Ti, co podepsali Budapešský memorandum, podle Zelenského mají do vězení, nebo jsem to pochopil špatně? Nebo ti, co to podepsali z ukrajinské strany, že by měli jít do vězení? Teďka si nejsem jistý, kdo má jít do vězení, jestli ti z Ameriky, Ruska, Číny a tak dále, co to podepsali, nebo ti z Ukrajiny, co s tím jako souhlasili s tou dohodou. Jako jestli v ukrajinském memorandum bylo jako, že dejte nám jaderný zbraně a my vás ujišťujeme, že nezautočíme, nebo tak něco. Že jo, taky otázka, jestli tam je slovo garantujeme, ujišťujeme, přísaháme, že jo, často je to o sémantice. Nebo jestli tam je napsáno garantujeme územní celistvost, například. Ale co kurva znamená garance územní celistvosti? Co to znamená garantujeme územní celistvost?
Assurance. Assurance that Ukraine will be territorially integral with its sovereignty. It was a piece of paper. If you are curious, by the way, that after occupying part of our Donbas and Crimea, Ukraine sent diplomats 3 times. I don't think I remember 3 times within a few years. We sent letters to all security guarantors, to all members of the Budapest Memorandum. What did they send? That what was written on the piece of paper. Consultations. Ukraine holds consultations if its territorial integrity is violated. And everyone should be in consultation. Everyone must come. Everyone must meet urgently. USA, Britain, Russia, France, China. Did anyone come, you ask? No. Did anyone reply to these letters, official letters? They are all recorded by diplomats. Did anyone conduct consultations? No. And why not? They didn't give a fuck. This is understandable in Russian, right? That as Russia
Velmi upřímné.
didn't give a damn, neither did all the other security guarantors of the Budapest Memorandum. None of them gave a damn about this country, these people, these security guarantees, etc. We take a break. This will be a Budapest Memorandum. The last time with me, imagine how many years it was with me, in February 2022. In February 2022, the war began. A full-scale war. Letters for consultations have been sent. No one answers. Next, we are taking a break from the Budapest Memorandum. The question is simple about Budapest. Can we trust this? No. Whichever country out of these 5 sat at the negotiating table, just a piece of paper. Believe me, we will save you. No. Another. This is a train. This is a train with waste paper, with security guarantees, which Ukraine has been riding for many years. The second car on this train is the Minsk Agreements. The Normandy format and the Minsk Agreements, where it was written, where the signatories were. The United States of America was no longer there. I understand that Obama was here at the time. And as far as I know, I think they were simply not interested in what happened to Ukraine and where it was in general, where it was located. Well, somewhere there. Part of something. People, and let it be. Let it be with these people. The United States simply did not participate in the Minsk
No fakt ty demokraty nemá moc rád, co?
agreements. There are no claims to the US because they were not guarantors. Where is the claim? A step back. 2008, Bucharest. Everyone has already learned from the Budapest Memorandum. Bucharest, 2008, Bucharest. Mr. Bush, President of the United States. Republican, says that Ukraine should be in NATO. This is the voice of Republicans. Check it out. Ukraine should be in NATO. Everybody is looking at the US, always. All in favor. Who is against? Merkel. So she opposes, and she forced everyone not to give Ukraine an invitation to join NATO because that would be a step. Seriously, Republicans were in favor. The US was in favor because Republicans and Bush were not afraid of anyone. They were not afraid of anyone, and they knew that Ukraine rightly wanted to join NATO. She chooses so. And what is the question? Well, people made their choice. Well, and the Russians will not look that way. That was not the case then. Why? Because the Russians were different. Next, Minsk. We didn't succeed. After the Minsk agreements, as I told you, hundreds of meetings were held. I have had hundreds of meetings since 2019. We could not think about a ceasefire. A ceasefire is our offer. This is not somebody's suggestion. This is mine. I want.
Tady se nabízí otázka. Možná to někoho napadne, zatím se teda nikdo nezeptal, ale já se zeptám. Jak se liší Budapešský memorandum od členství v NATO? Není NATO taky vlastně jenom kus papíru? A na to není jednoduchá odpověď. Jako, samozřejmě, že ve výsledku jediná garance je tank s posádkou, rota vojáků s dronama a stíhačky na nebi. Jo? Nicméně u NATO je tady ten problém, nebo spíš ta výhoda oproti Budapeštskému memorandu, Mínským dohodám, Bukurešti, to je jedno. U NATO je tady ta výhoda, že je to mocenský zájem Spojených států i evropských států to NATO udržovat. Že? Protože ve chvíli, kdy nemáš NATO, tak seš každý sám za sebe a seš slabý. Co se týká evropských států. A co se týká Spojených států, tak to znamená, nemáš vliv v Evropě. Nemáš vojenský zakázky, například. Je to snětek z rozumu samozřejmě. Ale na rozdíl od Minsku, když předhodíš na základě minských dohod Ukrajinu Rusákům, tak jsi prostě jenom tak trochu idiot, že jsi nedodržel nějakou smlouvu, OK, máš zhoršenou pověst, ale koho ve výsledku zajímá Ukrajina ve světě, že jo? Když nedodržuješ minské dohody nebo Budapešťský memorandum. Ale když nedodržíš článek 5, tak vlastně o tu alianci přijdeš. Jo? Takže obětovat Litvu znamená zničit NATO. Jakmile nebude vedena válka o Litvu, která je napadena Ruskem, NATO končí. Je to velmi křehká aliance. Velmi křehká. A jelikož je tak křehká, tak musí být uchovávána nekompromisně. A z toho důvodu nelze obětovat i ten nejslabší článek. A z toho důvodu být v NATO je mnohem víc, než být garantovaný papírem. Že?
Wanted to in Ukraine. Society was divided. Not everyone wanted to. Half did not want to. Half were against. Half were in favor. Some of them shouted, "Do not believe it." Some of them shouted, "Believe it." I am the president of Ukraine. I was given a mandate of trust by 70% of the population to take appropriate steps, and I made them. This is not a joke. We'll just sit the three of us. I am simply telling you what is. This is, how can I tell you? These meetings must be serious and prepared. And prepared with those who want peace. Ukraine wants peace. US wants peace. We have to sit down with Trump, and that is 100%. First and foremost, number one. Moreover, he told me on the phone that he is waiting for us to meet, and there will be an official visit, and my visit would be the first or one of the first to him. And for him, this topic is very important. I know that he has his own matters, American issues, I understand. I heard his election program, but regarding international affairs, I think our issue is one of the most pressing issues for President Trump. Therefore, I believe very much, I trust his words, and I hope we will meet again. We need to prepare. We have many plans to build on, and they exist, and they are supported by many countries. But we need his vision. He needs to look at all these details, but his vision, please, because he can stop Putin, because Putin is afraid of him. That's a fact. But Trump is a president of a democratic country, and he does not come for life. He is not Putin. He will not come for 25 years. He will come for his term. Please tell me. Well, for example, he came for 4 years, and for the 5th year, Putin came with a war. Will it make Trump feel better that there was no war during his time and that Ukraine was destroyed after him? Why destroyed? Putin is whoever, a killer whoever, but not a fool. He will be prepared. He knows all mistakes. He understands how we defeated his army after the invasion began. He realized that this was not a Soviet war and that this would not happen with us. He will prepare. He will let everything into arms production. He will have lots of weapons, and there will be a very large army. And you think that after such humiliation, 4 years without a war, he did not finish us. He will return and fight only against Ukraine. He will destroy everything around. And if you say there is a risk that President Trump, will withdraw from NATO, for example. This is a decision of the United States. I'm simply saying that if it does, Putin will destroy Europe. Calculate the size of army in Europe. It's just that I say it for a reason. Do the calculation. Why did Hitler conquer all of Europe then? Almost. Just count, remember, his armies of millions. Calculate what Europe has. What are the largest armies? We have the largest army. The Ukrainian army is the largest in Europe. The second place after us is 4 times smaller than us.
Polsko.
France.
Francie.
Yes.
Jo.
200,000? I think the French have about 200,000. We have 980.
So this powerful coalition of European nations.
That will not be enough.
Yes, it's not going to be enough, but you're a smart man. There's a lot of ideas. Partnerships with...
OK, dobře, jo, ale pojďme taky se bavit o tom, že evropské armády jsou demobilizované, jo? Že Ukrajina je v mobilizovaném stavu. Zase nejde říct, že Ukrajina je stejně silná jako celá Evropa. To je trošku mimo, no. To je trošičku mimo. No na druhou stranu otázka zní, jestli za ty 4 roky zvládneme dozbrojit, že jo? Případně.
Global South, India, Middle East, Saudi Arabia, ekonomické partnerships, political partnerships, it all protects you.
First of all, look at one example. North Korea. Just look at this example. 12,000 has arrived. Today, 3,800 killed or wounded. They can bring more. 30, 40,000. Or maybe 500. They can bring many people. Why? Because they have order, autocracy, and everything. Can Europe bring people together? No. Will Europe be able to build an army consisting of 2 to 3 million people? No, Europe will not want to do this. And for what? We definitely don't want a world war with you. There is no such purpose. There is no such purpose as gathering everyone. We do not want any war. We want to stop the Russians. And they invite North Korean soldiers. Invited. Their faces are burned. They themselves burn their faces. Those who cannot escape, injured or killed. There's a video. Everything I'm telling you, there is evidence of this. So that they are not recognizable, right? It means, what does it mean? It's out of values which share Europe. Europe counts. It means that those guys, they don't count. Rahuyut, it's count, yes? They don't count the number of people. That is the answer. Can they move more? Yes. Can they move dozens of thousands? Yes, because we see what they have. Last year, for example, Europe gave us 1 million artillery rounds. We produced a lot ourselves, but they gave us initiative. It was initiative. 1 million artillery rounds and of 155 and etc. We produced more. But North Korea gave Putin 3.7, just gave him. So he also has a deficit for today. It means he needs what? He needs time.
But the number of soldiers
Yes.
and the number of artillery rounds is not everything. As you have said, let's say Donald Trump guarantees security for 4 years. You can form partnerships with India, with Saudi Arabia that enforce punishment, the stick, on oil prices, for example, if any aggressive action is taken. You can actually even build, I've met a lot of incredible Ukrainian tech people, IT people. You could build great companies that form partnerships with the United States, that form partnerships with China. And that is a big leverage against aggression of however many million artillery rounds. And that, a sheet of paper, you don't need a sheet of paper of protection.
That's you. Well, when you speak,
In English.
In English, yeah. You don't even need answers because when you now were talking, you already answered on all the questions. The first one is that during this time, you need just cooperation, a lot of money for this military industry. In Ukraine or in Europe, with India, Saudi Arabia, Saudi and the United States, you need a lot of money.
Já to řeknu jednoduše. Pokud Trump vyjedná příměří s Putinem na základě toho, že se Putin bude Trumpa bát, tak Putin začne čekat, až Trump odejde. A ty 4 roky budou závody ve zbrojení. Pokud na konci toho 4. roku, až Trump odejde, bude mít Rusko armádu silnější a vyzbrojenější než Ukrajina, tak vyhrálo závod ve zbrojení a může to spustit znova.
So the question is where you will get it. So my answer was to Trump. I said, this is one of the security guarantees. Take 300 billions of frozen Russian assets. We will take it. Take money, what we need for our interior production, and we will buy all the weapons from the United States. We don't need gifts from the United States. It will be very good for your industry. For the United States, we will put money there, Russian money. Not Ukrainian, not European.
Ano, to se může stát. A mně jde tady o tohle. To se může stát. Takže vy budete radši riskovat dozbrojené, vycvičené, odpočaté Rusko, které mělo 4 roky na přezbrojení a napravení všech problémů, které v armádě mají, a možnost začátku nové války novým způsobem, úspěšnějším a tentokrát už bez chyb, než abyste dali pár prašivých miliard Ukrajině na zbraně. Abyste jim poslali jejich vlastní lidi konec konců bojovat. Nebo abyste prostě jenom těm lidem, co chtějí bojovat, dali možnost. Radši budete riskovat obnovu plnohodnotné války, tentokrát bez chyb, vyzbrojnější a silnější Rusko, než o 1000 ročně víc na plyn. No dobře, o 2000, jo. Abych to nebagatelizoval, ten strašný problém, který se na nás žene. Představte si to, o 2000 korun ročně víc za plyn, to je skoro 200 měsíčně. Ty píčo. No tak kámo, to je moc velká oběť. Tu nepodstoupím. To radši budu riskovat obnovení války s poučeným a přezbrojeným Ruskem za 5 let. Než 200 měsíčně? Vůbec. Kámo, kdybych to vzal takhle. Plať 200 měsíčně a nebude 3. světová válka. A ty řekneš, tak to ne, to je moc peněz. Radši si koupím Netflix.
Russian money, Russian assets. They have to pay for this. We will put it and we will make it. This is one of security guarantees? Yes, of course. Because this is a military guarantee, yes. But then the second you said that energy price and a lot of sanctions.
Doslova se jmenuje Laco. Prosím tě. Jmenuješ se Laco. Asi všechno, co bych k tomu řekl.
On products and the Russian shadow fleet and etc. That is the second
Proto si
answer we
odpojil tu
spoke
ledničku.
about before.
Proto jsem odpojil tu ledničku přesně tak. Mám odpojenou ledničku, šetřím 200 korun měsíčně na elektřině. A to jenom kvůli tomu, aby nebyla 3. světová válka za 5 let.
Yes, put more sanctions on them. More sanctions. It's okay. Not
okay.
to take off sanctions.
That's okay with you, but it's not going to be okay with the president of Russia.
Yes, but I'm not thinking how it will be very good for him. He's still a killer.
I understand, but unfortunately, the reality is that a compromise is needed in order to reach an agreement.
In your understanding, the fact that he is in jailed after all the murders, he is not in jailed assuming all the murders, and no one in the world is able to put him in his place, send him to prison. Do you think this is a small compromise?
This is not a small compromise, and to forgive him will not be a small compromise.
To forgive, no one will forgive. This is absolutely impossible to forgive him. We cannot get into the head and soul of a person who lost their family. Nobody never will accept this. Absolutely impossible. I don't know, do you have children?
No, not yet,
Okay.
but I would like to.
Yes. God bless. And this is the most important thing in life. And they simply took away the most precious thing from you, will you ask? Who ruined your life before going to rip their head off? I'm just curious. They took your child away. Are you going to ask who did this? And they will answer that dude did this. You will say, oh, well, then there are no questions. No, you will go fucking hell and bite their head off. And it will be fair. Can murderers be forgiven? That's why you make security guarantees. What I told you for those who are here and what we control and what will not happen. And that those who lost, we will never forget. In a matter of time. But when you gave us NATO, I just said, this means that after a while, everything I said about NATO, after a while, Ukraine will not go against Russia. And Russia will not go against Ukraine because you are in NATO. I am just saying, is not that a compromise? So NATO is a compromise. This is not just a security guarantee, in my opinion. Look, when rockets were attacking Israel, and Israel is not in NATO, NATO countries' aircrafts were deployed. Air defense. The air defense worked. Operated by different Middle Eastern countries. These are also security guarantees. And by the way, Israel has nuclear weapons. So why do they need NATO when in fact they have more than NATO has? The American, British, and French aviation stepped in. There was ADA. I don't remember from Jordan. Listen, thousands of missiles were shot down that way. This is, what is this? So it's a guarantee of safety. It's just that it's not called NATO. Is some Uncle Vova irritated by the word NATO? There's a problem with the word. And I think he's simply irritated by people who are alive and living here.
If you believe this, it will be very difficult to negotiate. If you think that the president of a country is completely crazy, it is really hard to come to an agreement with him. You have to look at him as a serious person who loves his country and loves the people in his country. And he conducts, yes, destructive military actions.
Who are you talking about now? Who loves his country?
Putin. Do you think he doesn't love his country?
No. What is his country? He happened to consider Ukraine his country. What is his country? Explain it. Tomorrow he will say that it's America. No pity for the Chechens? Do they look like Russians? Do they speak Russian? Of course. Of course they learn in schools like anywhere there's been Russification. Who are the Chechens? A different people. Another faith, other people, another language, a million. Eliminated. And eliminated how? How did he kill them? With love? I know, fuck. By hugging. In Ukrainian, as we say, strangling by hugging. I love you so much. I love you so much that I want to kill you. That's his love. And that's not love.
To není láska, to je obsese. Přesně.
You're mistaken. He does not love his people. He loves his inner circle. It's only a small part of the people. He doesn't love them. Why? I'll explain.
Mimochodem provedl jsem výpočet, kdyby každý daňový poplatník v Evropské unii platil 2500 korun měsíčně průměrně navíc, tak by to znamenalo navýšení evropského, jako celoevropského obranného rozpočtu o 20%. Takže o 20% silnější Evropa. To už něco je.
You cannot send your people to another land to die, knowing that they will die. Children, my daughter, she is 20 years old. For me, this is a child. She is already an adult, of course. But she is a child. The boys he sends are 18 years old. 18 years old. They are children. He sends them. It's not that fascists came to his land and he needs to defend it. He came to ours, and he sent them. Chechnya, he sent them. Syria, he sent them. Africa, he sent them. Georgia, he sent them. Moldova, Transnistria, that was before him. Fine, we can leave that aside. He has enough sins of his own. And then there's Ukraine, the largest part. 780,000. 788,000 killed or wounded Russians. He calls them all Russians, even those who don't know how to speak Russian. On his territory of Russia, everything they've enslaved. Yes, proud Varangians. So I wonder, is that love? What love is this? And for what? Does he love his people? No. Does he love his land? His country is bigger than America. How much land do you need? America is huge. America is simply an outstanding country. Outstanding country. Russia is bigger. Well, just bigger. So ask yourself, does he love them? What is he doing? And what does he love? Do you think he's been everywhere in his Russia? It's impossible to get around it. He hasn't been everywhere. He just hasn't.
Well, I believe that Donald Trump loves America, and I don't think he has been to every
sure.
single American city.
No. I saw his rallies. So many
Yes, yes.
rallies. No, let's be honest. Let's be honest. He had it and I saw it, and it's very difficult. He's not 18. Yes, but he's strong. And this is his will. Everywhere where the war is. I'm sure. I pray to God it never will be on your land, yes, and I'm sure that it will not be. But I'm sure that if you have in some region the problems, how to say earthquake, hurricane, you have it all. Well, I'm sure that President Trump would be there. After 1 day, 2 or 3 days, I don't know the security of all these things, but he will be. Otherwise, how will people look at him? Yes, of course he will. Of course. The same about me. I'm not comparing myself with him. I'm just, where it is difficult for people, I have to come. The next question is very simple. Region. Kursk region. The operation there. Was Putin in Kursk during 4 months? No.
Listen, I have tremendous respect for you and
Jasně,
admiration.
chápu. Tady jsem byl dlouho potichu, protože jsem se pokoušel pochopit, co se snaží Zelenský říct. A on se vlastně pokusil tady panu Lexovi vysvětlit, jak se liší Putin od lídra, který skutečně miluje svoji zemi. A prezentoval to na tom, že kdyby Trump byl prezidentem a ve Spojených státech byla nějaká katastrofa, něco, lidem se někde žilo špatně, požáry, hurikán, různý, řekněme, prostě problémy nějaký, tak se o to bude starat, bude se o to zajímat prostě. Protože ho ta země zajímá. Bez ohledu na to, kdo koho volí, ta země ho zajímá. Stejně tak Zelenský prostě, ta země ho zajímá. On jezdí do těch částí, které jsou postižený, protože má rád svoji zemi, protože ty lidi má rád, nebo minimálně cítí za ně odpovědnost. Nemusí je mít rád, že jo. Jsou to cizí lidi, ale cítí za ně jakousi odpovědnost. Bere to tu svoji pozici jako určitý poslání. Protože to lídři dělají, tak to většinou cítějí. A prezentoval na tom to, že Putina Rusko nezajímá. Ho zajímá jeho úzký kruh, jeho oligarchů a jeho kamarádíčků, ale obyčejní Rusové jsou mu úplně u zadku. A prezentoval to třeba na tom, že když byl v kurské oblasti problém, když kurská oblast má problém, když jsou tam Ukrajinci, je prostě bombarduje se tam a tak dále, tak Putina to nezajímá. Já chápu, že Zelenský cítí vůči Putinovi tuhletu nevraživost, protože kurská operace měla odlákat ruské jednotky od Pokrovsku a nestalo se tak, protože Rusové dali přednost vraždění Ukrajinců před záchranou vlastních lidí, takže chápu, že to Zelenskýho trošku rozčiluje, že ten plán nevyšel a
For many reasons, one of which is you stayed in Kyiv And another one is that you visit the front and you talk to the soldiers in the front and you talk to people all across Ukraine. Absolutely tremendous respect for that. So,
Thanks so
and
much.
not enough people say that, you know, I had a conversation with Tucker Carlson, for example, and, you know, I said that you're a hero for staying in Kiev. And he said, well, he just did a thing that every leader should do. But I think not enough leaders do the thing that every leader should do. So tremendous respect. And I
Thanks.
agree with you totally. Yes, a leader should go to the front of a war. You know, that said, America has waged wars all across the world. That has the war in Afghanistan and Iraq cost $9 trillion and killed over 1 million people. War is hell, and that just because war is waged in terrible ways that it is does not mean the leader does not love their country. But I take your point. I once again have a dream that even if there's hate, that you sit down with Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin and you find a way to peace. Let me ask you a question. What do you think? Will there ever be a day when the Ukrainian people forgive the Russian people
Já se, pardon,
and
musím
both
smát,
peoples will
protože
travel back and forth again
tohle je
and marry each other,
zvláštní argumentace.
rekindle and form friendships? Will there be such a time?
Je. OK, pane Zelenský. Teď jsme si tady hodinu jako povídali o tom, jak Putin posílá svoje 18-leté děti zabíjet cizí děti. Povídali jsme si o tom, jak Putin nerespektoval žádný garance a smlouvy, o kterých jste se dohodli. Povídali jsme si o tom, jak Putina nezajímá jeho země, protože jsou mu jeho lidi úplně ukradení a zajímá ho jenom o jeho oligarchové a jeho děvky ve Švýcarsku. Ale já mám sen, že se nějak dohodnete. Já mám sen.
In the future?
I think history has long answered this question. I don't know how it will be for us. It will be in the future. Without a doubt, history has shown this time. And again,
Ve vojenské teorii to mělo vypadat tak, že Ukrajinci měli udělat útok na Kurskou oblast a potom zaútočit tam, kde byli Rusové, prostě odlákat Rusy a potom zaútočit. Jaký smysl to mělo bez toho útoku? Hele, já myslím, že ten smysl byl zastavit rozjetou ruskou ofenzívu, nebo otupit rozjetou ruskou ofenzívu a získat čas, než přijdou zbraně. Že tuším, tam byl nějak problém se zbraněma, že potřebovali získat čas, než přijdou zbraně a než vycvičí nově mobilizovaný, že tam právě, že posunuli ten věk a udělali vlnu mobilizace. Myslím, že tehdy nějak tahle ta věc tam byla, no. A že to moc nezabralo právě, že Rusové prostě se nenechali odlákat, no.
One country recognizes that it was an aggressor and it comes
Třeba
to
mluvit
realize
o tom, co se dělo na Ukrajině po roce 2014 do
this
dnes?
is impossible to
Jo,
forgive.
naprosto
This is
jednoznačně.
precisely the kind of
Ruští vojáci
education
anektovali
they've had in
Krym
Germany
naprosto
for
bezprávně.
many years,
Ruští
even though
vojáci
these
přišli
children
na
had
Donbas
nothing
a
to do with it.
Luhansk.
It was their
Generál
grandfathers
Girkin, ruský
who
agent,
participated, and not all of them
vedl
were participants
separatisty, kteří byli vyzbrojováni a
of
podporováni ruskými
Nazi
vojáky.
Germany's war against
To všechno jenom kvůli
essentially
tomu,
against the
aby
world.
Ukrajina
Yes.
nemohla v klidu
And
žít svůj
against life.
revoluční
And
příběh.
therefore, they're still apologizing. Apologizing is not easy. They
Něco
know
jako když Francouzi
that they were
udělali
the
revoluci ve Francii a tak
They
do
were
Francie vpadly všechny
they do not
monarchie.
look for compromise in history. Compromise in itself buys time.
Takhle bych to
And they
řekl.
understand this. There are convicted murderers, condemned both historically and by their own people. Reparations have been paid.
Dívejte se, já se odskočím.
And security guarantees have been established, by the way, and all this is done. And when all this is done and recognized, in any case, people develop relations with each other. That's clear. But it can only happen the way it always has in history. Russia will have to apologize. It will. This will happen because they are guilty. They are guilty. And as I told you, the guilty are different. Both those who participated and those who remain silent, because silence is also about participating, in my opinion.
Can I ask about Donald Trump? We've already mentioned him a lot, but let's focus there.
What do you admire? What do you respect about Donald Trump? And also, maybe why do you think he won overwhelmingly the election in 2024? That American people chose him.
He was stronger. He was much more stronger than Kamala Harris, Biden first, and then Kamala Harris. Yes, he showed that he can intellectually and physically. It was an important point to show that if you want to have a strong country, you have to be strong. And he was strong. And this number of rallies, what I said, is not a simple thing. He showed that he can. He is strong. So he doesn't have any questions with his, this age and etc. Nothing. He is young. He is young here and his brains work. So I think it's important, very important. And of course, a lot of interior questions. I understand the prices and etc. economic questions and the questions of, you have the questions with other things.
Immigration, yeah.
A lot of things. I understand. So maybe he answered on those questions which people had.
One of the questions.
That he will finish the war.
That he will finish the war.
Yeah, for me, this is the main question. But I said that for him, he's the president of the United States. For him, his priority is his questions in the United States, and I understand and I respect it. But the second he was speaking about the world, yes, he said that he will finish the war. And I hope very much, because I think that our people really support his idea. And that's why I said it is for me. It's very, very important to have enough people around him who will have connections with him with the right things. For me, the truth is very right things. What's going on really on the battlefield? What's going on really with Putin and Russia? What he really wants. And that is just to have it. Before any decision, you have to be at the same level of information. And we need him to know everything from us, from you, from people in Ukraine, from people around who are really afraid that Putin doesn't want to stop the war, afraid that he will come back with his aggression.
So first of all, I should mention that our conversation today will be translated and dubbed into
Samozřejmě, že
English,
to, že Putin
Russian,
obnoví válku po tom, co
other languages,
získá oblasti a že bude
hearing
mít
your
to je
voice. So there are
samozřejmě jenom teorie.
great guys originally
Nemusíte
from
se to
Poland.
stát.
It's a company called 11 Labs.
Nicméně,
They've trained an AI.
tak už to
Artificial
dopadá,
intelligence
když
sounds truly remarkable in your voice.
jste
You have the freedom to
nedůvěryhodný.
speak in any language you choose, but no matter what, you will always find yourself returning to speaking in Ukrainian. That is, when you talk about Donald Trump, you can do it in Ukrainian or Russian.
Everybody understands.
Everybody understands.
But you said that there's some things about the war that maybe Americans don't understand. So we talked about Putin. We talked about the security guarantees, but the reality of war, what's happening on the ground, what do you think that people should understand?
First of all, they have to understand the idea of Putin's war. It is very important for him. I consider this process. I think it is very important for him not to give Ukraine independence. To
Teďka,
prevent Ukraine from developing
Zelenskýho
as an independent
názor,
country.
proč vlastně Putin válčí. Co zatím je? Tohle podle mě bude poměrně zajímavý.
Influence on Ukraine cannot be lost. And for him it is, I think for him, this is such a goal in this last mile, and certainly for him, the last mile and of his political life. And I think that this is the goal for him. The second story, I do not want to talk about these banalities, that he wants to return all the territories of the Soviet Union, influence over them. He does this little by little. I just don't want to, people need to know details. For example, Georgia, which was headed towards the EU and NATO, completely turns towards Russia, regardless of the fact that they have frozen conflicts. They have in Abkhazia what we have with Donbass, which is controlled by militant rebels. Abkhazia is not developing, it's just a very beautiful part of Georgia that has died. And if you have the opportunity, then go there someday. You will understand. It simply died because Putin wanted to. He wanted not to allow them to develop, because a frozen conflict means that you will not be accepted in the EU and certainly will not be accepted into NATO. Because right now, yes, they do not take you because of a frozen conflict. And this is what Putin did. It's very important for him not to lose this influence. That is, he turned back Georgia.
Prostě
students, everyone leaves.
Putin zná procesy, které vedou k přijetí do Evropské unie a do NATO. A tak udělá akce, které zabrání přijetí zemí, na které má záluzk do Evropské unie a do NATO a vyřeší si to jednu po druhé. Jednu po druhé se ji vyřeší.
And this is a fact. Georgia is quite small. And they will leave.
A NATO a Evropská unie na to budou koukat, protože budou mít svázaný ruce svými vlastními pravidly o tom, že nesmíš mít konflikt a musíš mít teritoriální integritu. V tu chvíli stačí jediná věc, aby zabránil vstupu do NATO. Prostě obsadíš jedno město, vyvoláš konflikt.
Live in Europe, they want to develop. Somebody in the United States, somebody in Europe, somebody in the EU, somebody in Britain.
Až budeš připravený, tak to přijdeš dorazit.
He will now fight for the Moldovan parliament. This is his second step. You will see in April what happens.
Po volbách by určitě v Bělorusku mohl vzniknout nějaký bordel. A když ne po volbách, tak kdy, že jo? Pokud ne po volbách, tak těžko někdy. Možná s koncem války ještě tam nějaká možnost, těžko říct.
She has won the elections. She is pro-European, but he will turn this back. The next steps are completely clear. He will do everything wherever he has lost influence, where there was influence of the Soviet Union. He'll turn it back as much as possible. And we understand at what price. You have seen Syria. You saw these tortures, what we saw in Bucha, what we saw everywhere we came and where our territories were occupied. In Syria, the same happened. There were 1,000 people there. And you have seen it. Scientists were found. Doctors were found. It is clear that any people are capable of generating their own opinion.
Uživateli Vladimír Zelenský, Volodymyr, nevíme, proč začala válka. Pokud Trump řekne něco jiného, tak lže. Trump nám nemusí nic vysvětlovat. Jemu by to měl vysvětlit, protože to zatím moc dobře nechápe. Nechápe, jak je to složitý a nechápe ty konotace. Je to prostě Američan. Musíš mu to vysvětlit.
Because again, I believe that this is the biggest risk. I think two steps that Putin would like to see is a weak NATO. And this without Trump and a weak Ukraine, which cannot survive on the battlefield, simply cannot survive and prevent me from building a strong relationship with Trump. I think these two steps, leaving NATO and Ukraine's weakness, will lead to a large-scale war, which Putin will wage on all the territories of that Europe, post-Soviet Europe. I mean, Soviet Europe, not post-Soviet, but post-World War II period. That is Soviet Europe, Soviet-era Europe, in order to completely control everything there. This is what he will do. And besides this will happen in any case, even if the US is thinking about leaving NATO. This war will affect the United States because North Korea is the first sign. North Korean skills, North Korean knowledge, which they are now gaining from this war. These include mastering new technologies, large-scale drones, missiles, how it works, the kind of technological war we have today, cyber war.
To je taky důležitý bod, že Severní Korea se v této válce hodně naučí a od Ruska získá spoustu věcí.
For the Pacific region, security first and foremost. For Japan and for South Korea, they will face these risks 100%, and it will be clear that Taiwan will also have to face them. Without this, it is impossible. This is already happening. Therefore, I think that President Trump has all power to stop Putin and give Ukraine strong security guarantees.
We've been talking for 2 hours at the pause. You want to take the break?
Yeah, we will make a pause. We can have coffee, right? Coffee?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
And give the interpreter. He's struggling.
Some water.
We keep switching languages.
Like a dragon, 3 heads, 3 translators.
So one of the difficult decisions you had to make when the war began is to enact martial law. So when you won the presidency, you were the warrior for freedom. In fact, this war is for freedom. For freedom of the individual, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom. But a lot of freedoms had to be curtailed, sacrificed in this fight because there's so much focus on the war. Do you see the tension? Do you feel the tension of that, the sacrifice that had to be made in democracy, in freedom, in fighting this war?
In any case, this war is for our freedom. Generally speaking, to be honest, when you understand over time, when the war passes, you understand that your main values are at home. This is your home, your children, your love. God willing, parents are alive. And if not alive, then their memory visiting their grave. Choosing how to work, how much, preferably choosing where to work. All this is freedom. Freedoms are not just a desire, they are an opportunity. In any case, you are right, because war is a limitation of opportunities. In any case, you fight for these opportunities. Your parents and God gave you life, right? You fight for your life. But we need to understand that first there is a war, and then martial law is introduced. Martial law is not introduced because someone wanted to. You say, this is not Pinochet, and so on. This is a completely different story. An aggressor came. And according to your legislation, if the border is violated, if there is armed aggression, you have all this written down, long ago written out in legislation. You introduce martial law. And the introduction of martial law everywhere, at all times, means, in any case, a restriction of opportunities. If opportunities are limited,
samozřejmě jako argumentovat tím, že no, vy bojujete o svobodu a přitom jste zavedli stanný právo, takže vlastně jste přišli o to, za co bojujete.
We try honestly to balance
samozřejmě hloupost.
As much as possible. I believe that the business sector works.
Stanné právo nezavádíte jen tak, mezi tím, že korejský prezident.
Somewhere to reduce the load. Unfortunately, we cannot reduce taxes. On the contrary, a military tax is used for war. You need to take money somewhere. This, by the way, is about the fact that the US gave us a lot, and Europe too. But compared to how much we needed for the war, this is not all. As for military salaries, you know that we could not pay the salaries of a million-strong army. We could not pay it using the money from our partners. These are all expenses. This is all the money that the country and people have accumulated. You can't do anything. I really want to reduce taxes. I will tell you frankly. I really want to. Well, I think that the whole new tax system, new deregulation, new steps, new reforms, all this will be after the war. Although there is something to brag about, this is proof. And this is a document, because if you want to get a...
Já teďka budu znít hrozně jako cynicky, jo, ale nemyslíte si, že ta válka svým způsobem může vlastně Ukrajině pomoci dosáhnout vyšší efektivity státní správy? Jestli si rozumíme, vlastně když jste ve válce, tak vy potřebujete mít co nejvyšší efektivitu státní správy, prostě fungování všeho, a máte spoustu pravomocí, které v míru nemáte, které můžete použít. Můžete být agresivnější, můžete překračovat různý pravomoce a tak dále. Takže teoreticky vlastně ta válka vyvíjí velký tlak na zlepšení fungování Ukrajiny, protože je to otázka přežití. Jo? Už to není otázka peněz, ale je to otázka přežití, že pokud ta Ukrajina nezačne správně fungovat, efektivněji fungovat, tak nepřežije. Chápeš? Takže možná svým způsobem, i když to zní hrozně, tak ta válka urychlí přesun Ukrajiny k civilizovanějšímu světu. Ohledně efektivity státní správy, ohledně třeba korupce a tak dále. Takže není to tak, že ta válka to udělá, nebo že díky té válce se to stane, ono by se to mohlo stát prostě bez války, ale díky té válce se to stane rychleji.
Candidacy for European Union, you must implement the appropriate number of reforms. We do everything. During the war, we voted for many reforms, including anti-corruption, banking reforms, land reforms, major reforms. We started a large privatization, and the war did not stop us. Yes, it slowed down, but we went through a lot.
When do you think you'll hold elections? Because for people who don't know, part of the martial law, elections were suspended and they were delayed and delayed and delayed. And I think the next set of plan is in February of 2025. But when do you think there will be presidential elections in Ukraine?
Elections were postponed once. They were not delayed, to be clear. Elections did not take place in 2024. That year, first of all, we need to understand the Constitution. They were scheduled to be held in the spring of 2024. Due to martial law, under the Constitution, you cannot do this. These are the presidential elections. The parliamentary elections did not take place in the fall of 2024, according to the Constitution. Yes, there are security things. There is the Constitution, but there are security things. That is, everyone in Ukraine understands that this cannot be done until the war is over or legislation needs to be changed. I believe that elections will take place immediately after the end of martial law. This is according to the law. Or members of the parliament need to get together and change legislation, which will be very difficult to do because society is against it. Why is society against it? It is understandable why. because we want elections that we want to trust. 8.5 million people went abroad. The infrastructure needs to be created for these millions of people to vote. Millions of people in the occupied territories. I'm not even talking about the occupation of 2014. I'm talking about the occupation right now. What to do with these people? This is a difficult question. And one of the most unfair ones is how to vote without having 1 million soldiers. It is impossible. We need to think about how to change the system if the elections are held in times of war.
Tady Zelenský řekl v podstatě důležitou informaci, kterou spoustu lidí pořád nechápe, že Zelenský neporušil ústavu Ukrajiny, protože Ukrajina má stanné právo, které se zavedlo kvůli vpádu ruských vojáků na Ukrajinu. A podle této ústavy volby nejsou. Takže Zelenský je legitimní prezident Ukrajiny, protože postupuje podle ústavy Ukrajiny. To je celý.
Changes to the voting system. To think about online voting. Everyone is afraid because of certain attacks, like cyber attacks, and so on. But we need to think about it. I really think that it's possible that we can end the war in 2025.
In January.
Oh,
we've already agreed on it.
I would very much like to. I would very much like to.
After the war?
And immediately. Yes, immediately. In the year of the end of the war. It's a fact. Why? Because when martial law ends, you can immediately vote in parliament to hold elections. And then everyone will vote. Because there are no restrictive measures. And after they vote, I think elections can be held in 90 days. Something like that. Yes. And this means that immediately after the end of the war, elections may take place in 90 days.
Are you running for re-election?
Even I don't know, really. I don't know. It is a very difficult question.
Myslíte si, že kdyby byly volby, že prostě představte si, že v roce 2025 skončí válka, jsou volby a Zelenský kandiduje. Myslíte si, že by to vyhrál?
First of all, and of course, my family.
Těžko říct, jestli je tam proti němu někdo silnější, nějaká silnější osobnost. Protože já tam teda nikoho nevidím na Ukrajině, kdo by jako mohl být protikandidát. Možná se jmenoval ten generál. Ježiš, Syrský ne, ten určitě ne, ten druhej. Ten, co ho odveleli do Británie. Zálužný, možná. To je poměrně silná osobnost.
If we look at the field of candidates, maybe you can give your opinion about the set of ideas you see out there, including your own, about the future of Ukraine. As I understand, the candidates include Poroshenko, Zaluzhny, Arestovich, Budanov, Klitschko, and many others. This is the internet speaking to me. What do you think of the space of ideas that these candidates represent?
I think there can be even a bigger number of candidates. Yeah, I don't really know what will be.
Já bych upřímně na Zelenskýho místě ani nechtěl kandidovat. Víš, kolik práce musel udělat, o kolik let zestárnul za těch 6 let.
Most important is what are they doing now. I think that
já bych řekl, že za těch 6 let zestárnul tak o 20 let.
And it's important for them to do everything they can today, not begin any election campaign. I think this what can divide our people to have the elections, during the war.
Pokud dovede Ukrajince k míru, budou za ním stát. No, tak jako tady je potřeba zmínit to, že třeba Churchill prohrál volby po druhé světové válce, že jo. Už ho měli plný zuby prostě. I když to byl prostě velký lídr, který dovedl k vítězství, tak prohrál volby. Už prostě ho měli dost.
You have two parties and the parties decide who will be the leader. And in Ukraine, everybody can participate. Let them.
You think you're going to win the debate? You versus Zaluzhny, Poroshenko, Arestovich, and you decide to run. Do you think you're going to win the debate? Or you're again focused on the war? And
I'm really focusing on the war. And
I understand.
I think the most difficult debate is what will be brought to the table, and we spoke about it. It will be during the war. How to finish the war. I think that is my goal because it will be one of my most complicated debates. And for any president who is in a war, of course, but I think this is my goal to win those debates. And the other things are not for today.
As I said, the dream I have is it's a historic opportunity.
Halo, už jsme to slyšeli, tvůj sen je mír, rozumíme, ale ty vole.
So I'm glad you're focused on that. Let me ask a question about that a lot of people in the United States.
Můj sen je taky mír, protože pak bych mohl natočit video o tom, jak Rusko porušilo mír a začalo válku znova. To by mělo views jak svině. Daleko víc než
you won the presidency
čas občasů report z
války. In big part, your message of fighting corruption. But there's a lot of accusations that during war, I mentioned $9 trillion in the United States, war breeds corruption.
So can you speak to that? How you have been fighting corruption, and can you respond to the accusations there has been corruption in Ukraine?
You know, it's very simple. First of all, we really have a very sophisticated anti-corruption system. Sophisticated not in the sense that it's difficult to understand, but in that it really consists of many elements. It's the most sophisticated in all of Europe. This is another requirement of the European Union. It was a requirement for Ukraine. And for many years, Ukraine was not trusted. I want to tell you that under me, we all voted for bills, all the anti-corruption reforms, almost all reforms, and all anti-corruption bodies today are independent. They work as requested. I still believe that they are not perfect yet. There are many issues. There is a judicial system, but also a judicial reform that our partners, the United States plus the EU, demanded from us. This is all written out. This is written out in specific
Ve chvíli, kdy máš nějaký problémy a tvůj stát funguje nějak špatně a EU ti řekne, hele, udělej tohle a ty to prostě jenom uděláš, tak svým způsobem to není zase tak těžký, že jo? Nejtěžší je vždycky vymyslet, jak to udělat.
To say that we do not have corruption would be lying. We just talk about it openly.
Nebo co udělat, jak to změnit, jo? A když můžeš prostě vzít návrh někoho, kdo už s tím má zkušenosti.
Who is the most influential Ukrainian oligarch since independence.
To by mimochodem mohli i Češi, že jo, se naučit konečně, přestat hledat české cesty a prostě brát, co funguje ve světě. No. Přezít dánský model výstavby bytů například, protože Dánové jsou nejlepší v tom. Já pořád nechápu, proč se to neděje. Proč prostě furt hledáme nějaký svoje způsoby, když na všechny problémy už někde ve světě někdo našel řešení. Většinou ten nejlepší, co v tom problému má nejmenší problém, že jo? Proč prostě nevezmeš řešení té země, která je nejlepší a neimplementuješ to?
And we're in Ukraine and we eliminated a lot of corruption. Of course, corruption exists in everyday life. It exists, but institutionally, I'm sure that Ukraine will overcome all this. This takes a little time, I would say honestly, that, listen, what we call corruption, and in some state of the world is called lobbyism. But this does not mean that there is no corruption there. Let's take the aid you mentioned during the war. First of all, we have no money. We have no money except for the war. We received weapons from the United States of America, from Europe. If we take, for example, money from the United States of America, during all this time of the war, around 177 billion have been voted for or decided upon. 177 billion. Let's be honest. We have not received half of this money. The second point, which is very important just as an example, is it corruption? The first question, whose corruption? This is the second. Here is just one small example for you. When the United States began to transfer us weapons, it was American money, but American weapons. Money for these weapons. As a president, I had cargo jets. Not in Ukraine because of the war. We moved them very quickly to Europe. We had cargo. We have good cargo fleet. Very good. Because of Antonov. So I asked American side to grant me the opportunity because our jets are at another airfield. And I asked America to give me the opportunity to use our jets for transfer. Not to pay a lot. To whom? To your companies. To American companies. No, I didn't get this opportunity. My jets stayed put. And the United States jets, cargo jets, move these weapons. But everywhere you have to spend money. So,
v podstatě ten problém je v tom, že Američané vykážou nějakou pomoc, kterou si nacenějí zbytečně draho. Je to jako není to ve skutečnosti pomoc a naúčtují si to jako pomoc. Takže oni řeknou, hele, my jsme Ukrajině poslali tohle a tohle, vlastně jsme na tu pomoc dali 100 miliard, nebo 100 milionů, to je jedno, ale polovina z toho jsou náklady, které si tam naúčtovali sami a jsou to zbytečné náklady. Ve skutečnosti ta pomoc nemá takovou hodnotu, protože starý kus šrotu ze skladu nacenili, jak kdyby to byl nový tank a tak dále. To je dlouhodobý problém, že ta pomoc ve skutečnosti nemá takovou hodnotu, jaká se uvádí.
For such decisions involve some companies that make these decisions, but I can't be open about it and I couldn't speak loudly about it.
To je, kdybych ti dal ojetou Fabii za 50 000 vazerů, kterou bys koupil a řekl, že jsem ti dal prostě dárek v hodnotě 1 milionu, protože dřív ta Fabie stála milion. 500 000 třeba. Ojetá Fábie je
If
prostě,
you will find
když
the
někomu
second
dáš
half,
ojetou
you will
Fábii,
find
tak mu nedáš
corruption.
něco v hodnotě
There is a
500
perception
tisíc.
of corruption.
Dáš mu něco
People
v
like Donald
hodnotě
Trump and Elon
60
Musk really
tisíc.
care
Ale
about fighting corruption.
kdybys byl
what
Američan,
can
co
you say
pomáhá
to them
Ukrajině,
to
tak si to
gain their
vykážeš
trust
jako dárek za
that
500
the money
tisíc.
is going towards this fight for freedom, towards the war effort?
In most cases, we did not receive money, we received weapons. And where we saw risks that something could be happening with weapons, we cracked down hard on everyone. And believe me,
Moje
this
kočka
is
se
not only
začíná
about
nudit.
Ukraine. Everywhere along the supply chain, there are some or other people and companies who want to make money. They try to make money on the war. We did not profit from the war. If we caught someone, believe me, we cracked down hard on them. And we did that. We did that, and we will continue to do so because to this day, when someone says that Ukraine was selling weapons, and by the way, Russia was the one pushing this narrative, we always responded. Our soldiers would kill such people with their own hands without any trial. Do you honestly think anyone could steal weapons by the truckload when we ourselves don't have enough on the front lines? And yet we have to provide proof to defend ourselves. Because when there's an abundance of such misinformation, distrust starts to grow. And you're right, people listen to various media outlets, see this, and lose faith in you. In the end, you lose trust. And with it, you lose support. Therefore, believe me, we are fighting more against disinformation than against particular cases. Although I still emphasize once again, at the everyday level, such things are still important. We catch these people and we fight them.
I mentioned Elon Musk. I would be interested to hear what you think of him, why you respect him as a person, as an engineer, as an innovator, as a businessman. I would just like to hear from you. What do you think about Elon Musk?
First of all, I had a conversation with him at the beginning
Pardon, kočka je idiot.
of the war. I talked with him. I respect him, first and foremost.
Já ti
I
tak
respect
strašně
the self-made man,
Mhm.
right? In
Yes.
English, I love such people. You know, no one and nothing fell into their lap, but the man did something, did it all himself. I worked myself, created a big production company, and I know what it means to make money, to select talented people, to impart knowledge to them, to invest money, and to create something important for certain people, you know. And I'm not comparing myself to Musk. He just, well, the man is a great leader of innovations in the world. And I believe that such people move the world forward. Therefore, I respect the result of his work. And we see this result. And for me, it has always been important that your result can be
Sorry.
used, that these are not words, but facts. Let's take the war. We are very grateful for Starlink. It has helped. We used it after Russian missile attacks on the energy infrastructure. There were problems with the internet, etc., with connection. We used Starlink both at the front and in kindergartens. It was used in schools. It helped children. We used it in various infrastructure, and it helped us very much. And I would very much like Elon to be on our side as much as possible to support us. And yes, I'm grateful to him for Starlink. Truly, I am. First of all, so that our guys have a connection and children too. And I am really grateful to him for that. I would like him to come to Ukraine, to talk to people here, and to look around, and so on.
Has Elon visited Kiev or Ukraine yet?
No.
I hope the Kiev airport will open soon. Then it will be easier to fly in.
Yes, I am looking forward to it. Maybe we will open it, but only, and you must understand, if the war is over, there must be sustainable peace
Na letišti
and
v
air
Kyjevě
defense
jsou
systems, to be
stíhačky.
honest. And we must
Nebo
ensure that
možná
they
tam
are
nejsou,
long-lasting
možná-
and effective. Let's take the airport, for
To bylo
example,
hloupý je mít v
and let's
Kyjevě,
focus
protože je to
on the
jasný
airport in
cíl, že
Rzeszów.
jo. Takže
which you know very well, as it is handling
těžko říct,
important cargo
myslíte si,
for
že jsou
Ukraine in Poland.
na
And there are
letišti v
Patriot
Kyjevě
systems there
stíhačky?
because
Nebo je
everyone
to
understands
příliš
what the risk
jednoznačný
is. Well,
místo,
Russia
kde
is
je
a
mít,
risk,
takže je tam
and therefore
nemají?
we need air defense systems. And today take, for example, the air defense system of one city or another that is being shelled and move it to the airport. Well, that would be dishonest. People are more important than planes. But there will be a moment, and Trump, by the way, I think that the war will end, and President Trump may be the first leader to travel here by airplane. I think it would be symbolic by airplane.
Again, January 25th, around that date, right? Flying in, meeting the Air Force
Oh.
One,
That would be cool.
Elon Musk. I will meet you there for the second time too, on the plane.
With pleasure.
And you, by the way, before I forget, let me ask, are you coming on January 20th for President Trump's inauguration?
I would like to, of course. I will be considering what is happening then in the war, because there are moments of difficulties, escalation, many missiles, etc. But honestly, well, I can't. I can't come, especially during the war, unless President Trump invites me personally. I'm not sure it's proper to come because I know that in general leaders are, for some reason, not usually invited to the inauguration of presidents.
Přesně o tom jsme dneska mluvili.
Of the
Přesně o tom jsme
United
dneska mluvili,
States.
že lídři státu nechodí na inaugurace. Jo? Z toho důvodu to, že tam jede Macinka a nejede tam Pavel nebo Fiala, neznamená, že Macinka je u Trumpa něco víc než Fiala nebo Pavel. Ba právě naopak.
America. Well, and I know that there are leaders who can simply come, want to come, and will come.
Státníci tam prostě
Yeah,
nejezdí.
I know. And I know the temperament of some of these people. They can come at their discretion. This is very, very difficult for me. I am the kind of person that cannot come without an invitation. This is Putin. We did not invite him. He came to us, so to say. And me? I can't do that.
No, but didn't he publicly say that? It would be great if you came to the inauguration. Or you mean, did he invite it officially?
No, wait, look. Listen, I am against any bureaucracy. I get rid of it as much as I can. But, well, you know, there are some complexities involving security. I decide and I fly. And the United States of America officially provides security. Not that I need this, mind you. I do not ask for helicopters to fly around and protect me, but they will simply do it themselves.
To nebylo úplně prozíravý.
They had to do it. I don't want it. And
Na
sometimes
druhou stranu,
I don't
kdybychom
need
s
it. And
Ruskem
I'm asking
neobchodovali, tak
them.
se víc
It was, for
orientuje
example,
na Čínu a ty
before the war,
sankce ho vlastně
I think, yes, it was before the war. I had a meeting, yes, with President Trump. It was in 2019. I just wanted to go run early in the morning because I really wanted to exercise. And those tall bodyguards, a lot of them, they decided to join me, but I couldn't really do it because they were in suits. And I was in sportswear. I said, no, I can't. It's always funny. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to disturb anybody and cause anyone problems with me. And that's why if he will invite me, I will come.
I thought he invited you.
To mám podobný.
Yeah, I thought he publicly invited you, but okay, I hope to see you there.
I think they had to do some of their steps. I don't know, but
the stamp was missing.
Yeah, but with pleasure with my wife, of course, and I think it's important. It's important.
All right, let's get back to a serious question. Sometimes they say it in America, this question of who is really in power. So let me ask, is someone controlling you? For example, oligarchs, American politicians.
Zajímavá otázka.
Yermak.
Určitě ano.
I wanted to bring this up because I have been here in Ukraine twice since the invasion of 2022. And one of the things I've learned, is that actually nobody controls you. And this is one of your strengths as a president, as a person, that oligarchs and other rich and powerful people like that cannot control you. Can you explain why that is, how you see it?
I think, and it is indeed true, that I'm generally difficult to deal with. I am an ambitious person. I can't submit to anyone. I can live by rules, by laws. I believe that this is the only thing that can control any person today. These are the rules and laws of the society or state where you live. And I believe that this is the most important thing. There's no person who could control me. As I once told President Trump, when we had a meeting, by the way, journalists asked if Trump influenced me during the phone call. I told the journalists the truth then. Who can influence me? Only my boy, my son. This is a fact. When he calls asking for something, well, then I lift up my arms. Yes. And I cannot do anything about it because children are children. I have so little time with them. And therefore, when there are these moments, they are precious and important to me. I am ready to do anything. Also, probably my parents, they are an authority for me. Beyond that, I view it more as a system. No one can control the president. Therefore, we have oligarchs who either fled or are in prison because oligarchs usually control cash flows and people and influence politics. And we have concrete examples with sentences. They are not just under house arrest. Not just that, there are some judgments under which their assets were frozen or sanctions were imposed. There are specific people who are behind bars. I think this is the answer regarding the influence. Would they like to influence me in the same way as any president of Ukraine? Because finance and cash flows always influence politics. Well, at least they want to do this. This is regarding the influence. And other people on the vertical, they perform tasks as my managers. Andriy, you mentioned, is one of those managers. Well, I am glad that I have such people. Well, probably there is nothing else to add here.
I will just say that your team that I spoke with is an excellent team. Excellent people.
Thank you.
Okay. One last question. The future of Ukraine. If you look 5, 10, 20 years into the future.
Jsme na konci, vážení, byla ta dlouhá cesta, byl to dlouhý pohled do duše Vladimira Zelenského. Bude to dlouhý video a dlouhý stream.
We began this work. We have special ministry of digital transformation.
Ukrajiny.
Yeah. So this is very good. And we also have our DIA. This is the name for all of these services. Yeah. So I think that is the most important. This is,
Oni mají taky e-občanky a e-řidičáky.
Any possibilities for future corruption.
Kámo, jsme na tom hůř jak Ukrajina reálně.
Connections with people in the government or elsewhere.
Co se týká digitalizace.
On your phone or any other device.
Tak nic.
And I think we are doing very well. We are the best in Europe. All of Europe recognizes it. Some countries of the African Union asked us to provide this, the same service, and we will do it after the war immediately. And I think that we can bring money to Ukraine from this. And I think what we also need, we need a tax reform. I think it will be very important for the businesses to return. A lot of support will come, I think, from USA business investment, not as direct aid to us, just to the private sector and resources. And I mentioned this to President Trump and to some European leaders who are our key strategic partners that will be happy, especially with the Americans, will be happy to sign these contracts and engage in joint investments in many areas. And I think we can develop oil, gas, green energy, including solar power. And we already have the resources. We can invest money into this. We have oil reserves in the Black Sea that we can exploit. And we need your
nakonec se budeme na Ukrajinu jezdit učit, jak se dělá digitalizace. Vůbec bych se tomu nedivil. Budeme se tam prostě jezdit učit, jak se válčí. Budeme se tam učit, jak se dělá digitalizace a jak se efektivňuje státní správa v době krize. Ukrajina bude učit Českou republiku, jak se to správně dělá.
This will give us, of course, opportunities,
I tohle může způsobit válka ve vaší zemi.
Revenue. I don't want cheap labor, honestly. What I truly want, especially after the war, to open up for those people who can really contribute and earn. Yes.
Yeah, give a reason to the 8 million people to come back.
Yes, it's so important. And they will come and we will recover and rebuild Ukraine. We will be very open to companies. And of course, we will welcome our people back. It's so important culturally. I think the most important thing is to remain open and not change our direction. Because culturally, aligning with Russia, it's one idea, while aligning with Europe is another. Our people have chosen Europe. It's their choice. It's our choice, the choice of our nation. And I think it's very important.
But first you have to end the war.
Yes, you're right.
Blížit se s Evropou je jediná logická cesta, protože Ukrajina má spoustu věcí, které Evropa chce. Ale doslova nemá žádnou věc, kterou chce Rusko, kromě území.
And people will tell you, no, we can't forgive.
Takže obchodovat s Ruskem je úplně zbytečný pro Ukrajinu.
But we still want to make peace. And honestly, I think that the highest approval rating of the president of the United States, of Trump, now is in Ukraine. People really believe that he can truly help bring peace. Now they have faith that he can make it happen, that he can support Ukraine and he can stop Putin, and that he will make sure Putin doesn't get everything he wants. This is very important, and it's why we believe that we must not lose this opportunity.
I hope you find the path to peace. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for talking.
Thank you for coming.
Спасибо. Дякую. Я забыл.
Yeah, you started.
Tak jo, vážení. Tohle byl rozhovor s Volodymyrem Zelenským od Alexe Friedmana. Jo, bylo zajímavé se podívat do duše Volodymyra Zelenského, jak on to vnímá. Dozvěděl jsem se pár nových pohledů na některé věci z jeho perspektivy. Samozřejmě nemůžu souhlasit úplně se vším. Spoustu věcí bylo takový, že to musí říkat, protože je to ukrajinský prezident, logicky. Ale určitě dal pár perspektiv na možnost toho konfliktu a nemožnost toho konfliktu a jak se to dá vnímat, jak se to nedá vnímat a tak dále. Hodně mě na tom právě zaujalo to, že ta válka Ukrajinu posouvá dopředu, že jim dala vlastně ta válka nový impuls, že je sjednotili jako národ, že zároveň jim dala jako nějakou jednotnou věc, za kterou jít a to pomáhá posouvat další věci, což samozřejmě nedělá tu válku dobrou, jenom jako, že to je věc, která je nakonec posílí. Hodně zajímavá je ta věc, že Ukrajinci, pokud nedostanou spravedlnost, tak to může být hodně špatný i pro Rusy. A pak samozřejmě jeho slova o tom, jak jednal s Putinem a jak to nakonec dopadlo a jeho pohled na Putina byl určitě taktéž poměrně zajímavý. Neříkám, že jeho názor budu nějak papouškovat, nebo že si vezmu všechno, co řekl k srdci, nebo že všechno, co řekl teďka, bude jedna ku jedné moje doktrína, nebo tak něco. Ale jde spíš o to, že to je vlastně zase novej dílek do mozaiky toho všeho a zase to trochu lépe pomohlo pochopit různé věci. Takže asi tak. Vážení, já vám děkuji za pozornost, bylo to dlouhé, bylo to vyčerpávající, ale máme to za sebou a uvidíme se zase u dalších videí a streamů. Mějte se zatím krásně, já se s vámi loučím. Ahoj.